And welcome back to another edition of the Michael Decon program. I am your host, Michael Decon, Master of Ceremonies. This is a very different kind of show, a place where we don't feel so alone. Let us chase away the light no matter what you at home choose to believe. We do admire you for your curiosity. Joining us tonight is Mr. Davon Mays. Dayvaughn is a community activist and poet, writing books about ethics, street life, and giving poetic inspiration for all ages. He currently has over 25 books, including the book series Confusion of the Gentiles. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing us into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again, on a night like this. Abracadabra, here I am, and there you are. Are you watching these riots? Do you think this was started by a federal agent? Or maybe even a police officer of sorts, a disgruntled police officer of sorts? What do you think? Reading the news and reading between the lines. The lies indeed. There is no age of enlightenment, I'm sorry. Just chaos. That's just the way it goes, my friends. Our country is back to being heavily divided, it seems. I say we haven't been united since the day after 9/11. If you think a civil war may be brewing, I'd say we've got all the right ingredients to set it off. We've got a global pandemic. We've got frustrated Americans completely fed up with everything. We've got an economical crisis, and now certain individuals are turning these things into a racial issue. The race wars, yes. The vicious cycle never ends, boys and girls. 2020 is going down in the history books, ladies and gentlemen. We are now at the point of no return. And with that said, let's bring in my co-host, Mr. Mike Hideous. Mike, what's going on? How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Deacon, and how are you tonight?
I'm good. I can't complain. So much to get into here. And my goodness, Mike, I'm glad you are alive and well, and you're sitting back and watching the chaos ensue.
Oh, yeah, well, you know that for a fact, brother.
Of course. Now, Mike, we are with another very special gentleman tonight, the guest, Mr. Davon Mays, who I believe is patiently waiting for us. Davon, what's going on?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm fantastic, my friend. I'm so glad you are also here to be with us this evening. So much to get into here with you. And of course, I had all sorts of notes in mind just for you. But all of that goes out the window once it's showtime, especially with all the things going on in America today. We could talk about religion, or we could jump right into this current time that we live in. And with that said, Dayvaughn, welcome to the program once again. Always a honor and a privilege to speak to you. And we did so before the show started.
Correct.
Yeah.
We had a good conversation before the show started. Yeah, we did.
We really did. I wish we could get into some of those things about the other show hosts out there, but we'll be nice tonight.
Okay. Yeah, wherever you want to go.
Yeah, we'll behave. So, Davon, tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the current situation we face.
Okay, well, my name is Davon Mays. I'm born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I still live in Colorado. I just don't live in Denver anymore. Graduated in '96 from East High School. Been married to my high school sweetheart since then. Got two beautiful children. I'm a poet. I teach ethics. I do community service. I debate on radio shows. I'm an author. And I just try to get involved with the youth and anybody who's willing to live a better life, for that matter. You know, not necessarily just youth, but overall, I teach Torah, which is what people refer to as the Old Testament. I'm not Jewish. I come from a perspective of I am what people would refer to as a Ben Noah, or a son of Noah, which means basically we're all descendants of Noah, even if you are Jewish. To be a Jew, you have to be born a Jew or you need to convert. I'm a former Christian. I was raised a Christian, left Christianity in my early 20s. And me and Michael actually talked about that, dealing with, I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness / Baptist. So there was that element in my life. And I just basically went down the road of, once I left Christianity, I went down the road of just going in all directions, seeking a lot of different information, learning more history, a lot of history, a lot of when I first left the New Testament or the church, I got into a lot of mysticism, or not so much practicing it, but just reading about the occult, Kabbalah, and things like that. And it takes you down so many roads. And then I was into the whole New World Order thing, the Illuminati. I was a prepper,
Holy cow!
He went deep.
He went right down the road.
I exposed myself to a lot of different things because as a Jehovah's Witness, they don't encourage you to read anything outside of their literature.
Right.
And they have a lot of literature, so you can kind of be consumed in it. The good thing is they do have a lot of different things that they talk about. They got a lot of information. It's not so all religious information. So I was able to retain a lot of the things that I learned, not their doctrine, but the things that I was exposed to reading all their different books, talking about history,
right?
Just a lot of different things, and of course outside of going to the Kingdom Hall and stuff like that. But
sure,
I was blessed to be exposed to a lot of different information, which lets me politic or chop it up, for lack of a better term, with a lot of different people on different topics and not be so closed-minded.
What made you change, go from Christianity to the Torah? I'm assuming you're practicing Judaism, right?
You could call it Judaism. Yeah, that's a term which is up for debate, but overall, yeah, it would be under the umbrella of Judaism. This is one of the reasons I wrote my false fulfillment citation series years later, of course, because this was back in 2006 when all this happened. When you read in the New Testament, there's a lot of citations that say, well, this was spoken to fulfill what the prophet Jeremiah said or something like that. And it is all supposed to point to Jesus. But when you go back and actually read the text, the context of the stories, they don't have anything to do with Jesus. They just kind of insert him in there. They change words. They leave out words. they ignore the context around the story. They isolate one verse. They quote the verse and say, see, that's talking about Jesus. And that's the false fulfillment citation series. One of the first books in that is, well, not one of the first books, but one of the books that really sticks out is Matthew chapter 2. Matthew actually has some of the most citation devices used. And in that book, I go through the entire chapter 2, and it's about 5 or 6 citations that I prove to be all bogus, using the New Testament pretty much, you know what I'm saying, and the Tanakh, and putting it in a historical context. And there's no way that you can read that and ignore that they take prophecies. Some of them aren't even prophecies. They're just statements made, and they turn them into prophecies, and they try to put Jesus into the story. So if we got time, or if you like, I can go into some of that, but that's one of the reasons. And I actually, the very first thing that happened was I came across a debate that exposed me to these citations. I seen a Jewish rabbi was debating a Christian priest, and the priest just didn't have no answers for the rabbi. It was like a 3-hour debate. It was a Rabbi Masoretic, and I forget the name of the priest, but it's on YouTube.
Sometimes that's exactly what happens during these debates. It ends up going nowhere.
Yeah, the priest pretty much was, all he did was drink water the whole time and kind of give a lot of sermons. But when the rabbi was asking him questions to explain himself and give proofs of what he was trying to accomplish, it just didn't work out. And that's when I realized that I need to go back and actually read this, because at the time I wanted to defend the priest because, I was a Christian.
Right.
So I was like, okay, this right. Because here's the thing. When you hear about the Jews rejecting the New Testament or Jesus, you always hear from a Christian perspective, oh, the Jews don't believe, they're blinded. That's what the New Testament says. But you never ask the Jew, why don't you accept Jesus, and get their perspective.
Right.
It.
And by the way, when you left the whole Jehovah Witness religion, your family, were you exiled? That's kind of what happens once the family is deep with the religion there, the Jehovah Witnesses.
No, I wasn't exiled. Because really, on my mom's side of the family, me and her and a couple of others were the only ones actually like attending this. The everybody else kind of went. How people go to church on Easter and Christmas, and that was kind of it.
Right.
That's kind of how it was with the Jehovah's. Now, on my dad's side, they were Baptist, so they never were Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place. But on my mom's side, really, me and her were the only ones who really went, and I was going since I was like 6 years old, up into my 20s. So, when I left, she actually started asking questions, and they basically kind of exiled her. She was more. She brought me into it, so they kind of pretty much shunned her overall. And the thing is interesting, I had asked them to get baptized. This is what led me to questioning and asking so many questions. I was in my 20s. I had been going since I was 6 years old. I had never been baptized. So when I asked them to get baptized, they told me that I wasn't coming enough. Because, Jehovah's Witnesses, they have what's called field service, where you go out and spread the watchtowers.
Oh,
knock on
right.
doors.
Door to, yeah. Like the Mormons, right.
I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with those people at my door.
Man, so they told me that I didn't have enough field service hours.
Okay.
And I'm like, I've been coming here since I was 6 years old. And so I went into the New Testament. In the book of Acts, chapter 8, it tells you that this guy named Philip shows up from Ethiopia, asks a question, and Philip baptizes him on the spot, right? He didn't have no field service. He didn't have no door-to-door experience. He gets baptized on the spot. And I'm like, what is this?
Right.
Who said? So I said, you know what? I need to ask some questions, because that's not right.
Understood.
That's not right.
Yeah. Davon, let me ask you this now. With everything going on, the COVID-19 pandemic that the world is facing, what do you make of these churches now being reopened rather?
Well, it's funny that you asked that, because and I've heard even Christians say this, so I don't want people thinking that I'm going to start beating up the Christians. Where were the Christians that were supposed to heal the sick and raise the dead and all this in Jesus' name, right? Nothing shall harm you, and you can drink poison and all this stuff. I haven't seen any of that. And if they could do that, that would be all over YouTube, right?
Right.
So even before they're able to open up the churches, where's your sermons and your doctrine at? Because you can't go to church now and scream this healing stuff when you just sit back and watch all these people die or be in the hospital, So open up the churches. I don't think that's going to change nothing, because church really is just a place to gather, to listen. And if you got a Bible or a book, you can sit and read that at home and study and get way more out of it than listening to a preacher and giving him your money, especially when tithing is supposed to go to the Levitical priesthood. So there's so many problems with just the church, the word church in itself. But
it's
the fact
odd
that they want to open up churches, if they did, you're going to gather people in, and the churches are going to, of course, pass around that collection plate.
Exactly.
But where were you for all these people when they were sick?
Well, Jesus needs a tip too.
He must have lacked Federal Reserve notes, you know what I mean? Because he obviously wasn't around for the people who were sick, and it's like, okay, you're going to open up the churches. Is that supposed to make people feel better? Is that a psychological thing that I went to church today?
I think it's a psychological
have you been doing
thing.
since the church has been closed? Has your Bible been closed? Like, I don't see the actual turnaround of events since the churches are going to open.
Right.
I agree with you, and what you just said is it's a psychological thing.
Yeah.
It's when you go to I used to be a Catholic, and you go to church. It's a thing where you reflect, you meditate, you pray, that sort of thing. So I get it, but I personally don't think it serves any physical. What's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't serve a purpose per se for a physical attraction, lack of a better term.
You know where a good place is to have a self reflection, a good place to have that self reflection, Mike and Dayvaughn?
Where?
I'm sorry?
The shower.
Oh,
why? What does that mean?
A lot of singing and thought processing going on in the shower, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the best place. I mean, your mind can wander.
Oh, mine does.
That's right. That's a good place to start. Think about life. Think about your next move. Think about what's going on in the world. I mean, some of the best sort of self-reflection and ideas have been manifested in that shower stall.
Really?
Yeah, you come out, you feeling good.
Absolutely.
You fresh, you feel good, you feel fresh, you put on some cologne, and you're ready for your day,
Yeah.
It's a preparation.
Yeah, you get cleansed by the water.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong, but it does feel great getting those moments in the damn shower stall.
Yeah, but you'll live.
Right. Exactly. And it is interesting that all these things that are going on that we're seeing today, it's almost like we see these cycles come and go. Would you agree, Davon and Mike?
Definitely. The cycles do come and go. I mean, when it was 9/11, it was a national attention on that. Every time something happens, and this is the power of the media. The media knows exactly when to strike and how to strike. When Michael Jackson died, it was something, and then let me put my conspiracy theory hat on.
Go ahead.
Because I don't remember exactly the bill, but I know there was some kind of backdoor bill that was passed in the middle of the night during all these celebrity deaths, right? Mm-hmm. They grab your attention with the celebrity deaths, and then you hear somebody saying, well, they passed this bill yesterday, but nobody knew about it or cared about it. Like the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld announced that they lost $1 trillion from the Pentagon, but then when the 9/11 happened, nobody thought about that no more. So it's completely, it happens again and again, but since there's bread and circus going on, who cares? Because the game is about to come on, Well, not now, but that's usually how it works.
Jump in there, Mike.
The interesting thing is Michael and I had a very intense let's start again.
Go
Michael
ahead.
and I had a very intense conversation this afternoon. He had sent me a link that I had a very hard time adjusting to. It's a current event that's taking place in Minneapolis. And I called Michael up. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to think anymore. Especially since I've been doing this show with Michael. How long has it been now, Michael? 4 months?
About 3 months, maybe 2 months.
At least more than 2, maybe 3 or 4. And I have heard, based on all the people that we've interviewed, I've heard more conspiracy theories, theories of what people believe to be fact. And I am at a point where I'm having a hard time swallowing some of the stuff that I see that's going around. And a lot of it is become as a result of everyone having a cell phone, everyone having a video and camera, or I should say a camera and a video camera on their phone to record things. And a lot more is being exposed through YouTube and social media. And I told Michael today, I was never interested or cared about conspiracy theories. And now, having been a part of the show for as long as I've been, my head is whirling, man.
He's red-pilled now. He's starting to get red-pilled there, Dayvaughn.
I was just about to say, you've entered the matrix, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you know what? I was
crazy.
talking with a friend of mine about this yesterday, and he's basically, we were talking like basically the same conversation you're having. If you got your conspiracy theory hat on, you've seen this coming 10 years ago. If you got your secular hat on, it's like, oh, I saw that in the movie, but it's never going to happen. But now that you actually see it, it's like, whoa, I've been asleep.
That's the wake-up call.
Right. I've been red pilled, man, and I'm having a hard time. I'm really having a hard time accepting what I'm seeing and what I'm being told.
It's right in front of your TV screens now.
Yeah.
History repeats itself. I mean, to go back into history and even in religious documents, they talk about the technologies and stuff, because now we got the 5G thing going on, and there's all kind of conspiracies about that. But
right.
If you go back in the ancient technology, you watch Ancient Aliens and stuff, they got a lot of different theories of the technologies and the things that they were into back then, and we see them now. Like today, what we have 200-300 years ago, people would think this is magic.
That's true.
Absolutely. Well, you know what it is. It was the discovery of oil.
Speaking to you, but I don't see nobody or what I call a phone on a speakerphone, right? That's right. It would be magic. You know what I mean? Computers. I can make images appear on a screen from China. I can watch what's going on right now live in China, and I'm sitting in Colorado. People would think is that a wormhole? Is that magic? Like, what's going on? So, technology, I think, is a better term for magic.
That's an interesting concept right there.
Yeah, it really is.
This all comes from, and I'm not just trying to pinpoint there's a lot of different philosophies and philosophical books out there, but this is all the stuff that I learned by studying the Torah, and it takes you outside of just being religious. You actually learn different concepts and languages and terminology to make you think about these things on those grounds,
Davon, I have a question for you. You had mentioned earlier, now that we just mentioned the word magic, you mentioned you read about the occult. What did you read? What did you study? What brought you into that?
A lot of Egyptian things, the Kemetic schools, a lot of African studies, spiritualism. I grabbed a bag of. Actually, I didn't grab it. I came out of the museum one day, the Denver Museum of Natural History, and this lady walked up to me, and she handed me a book, and she asked for a donation. I had $1 in my pocket. I only had $1 in my pocket. And I mean, I don't even remember who the lady was, and she just walked up on me out of nowhere. She gave me this big, thick book, and she actually kind of had an attitude. She was like, "That's a $30 book." I was like, "I only got $1, and I didn't ask for it. You walked up to me and just gave it to me." You know what I mean? But in that book, it talks about all, it's dealing with Krishna and all kind of different things of the Hindu religions and stuff. But I was, you read the forwards and you look up the author of the book and stuff, and he was talking about traveling to different planets and going astral planing and all kind of stuff that I'd never heard of. You know what I mean? This is years ago.
That's blasphemous. Like, how dare you read that?
I'm like, what is all this? You know what I mean? You see stuff in movies, but when it's in a movie, it's like, Hollywood can make anything look fresh. You know what I mean? But
sure,
like they were doing this thousands of years ago. Again, this is technology. This is not so much, abracadabra, what you see on TV, Harry Potter stuff.
Right.
Even though that there's truth to all types of things, but just that book is just one example of being exposed to things that you would never. There's no way I would have just walked into a library and bought this thick, because I'm sure the book was probably was a $30 book. You know what I mean? And
you remember what it was called?
Put it in my hand.
Yeah, good question. Do you know what it's called?
The Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, okay, yes.
It's a book on the Bhagavad Gita as it is, because there's a whole bunch of different versions. But this particular guy basically said this is how it is. And it's basically the story of Krishna, and there's a war going on, and he's telling his disciples why there's wars and reincarnations and all kinds of different things. So It's pretty thick book. It's it talks about mantras and vibrations and all kind of different things. It's basically the Hindu religion.
Right.
But
And go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna.
That book. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That
Go ahead.
book and the Kemetic books, the Medu Neter, which is the Egyptian languages system. All those things. There's terminologies and things that, like the word nature, is in the word netter. These are like words of the gods and stuff. And we say Mother Nature, and you got Mother Netter. I mean, the people take these words and they cross-reference them with English and stuff like that. You'll find so much about what a word means when you go into the language of, where it comes from. Because, English is all kinds of, a couple of different languages. But when you go into ancient languages,
a lot of different
specific.
languages.
Yeah.
Right. Like Hebrew is a real literal language. Like the word Adam, you can say it's a name, but it really means red. It comes from the word Adamah, which means red dirt, which Adam was made from the dirt, right? That's the story. So when you look at the actual word to tell you what it is, like the word Eve, her name is Kava in the Hebrew, which means the mother of the living. That's what she was. Like any woman is an Eve because she's a mother of somebody who's alive.
Right.
So it's a real direct language. So when you're able to read these things and in the culture that it was created in, it sounds different. Like if I told you, hey Michael, you owe me money, I'm gonna come over there and break your pockets.
Right. That's
but
true.
if somebody 1,000 years later come by and reads that transcript, they can be like, what is his pockets made of glass? How's he gonna break his pockets?
Right.
He's
Right.
gonna take your money.
That's
He's
true.
gonna take your money from you.
Good point.
You know what I mean? So if you don't know how to read things in their cultural context, it kind of throws things off.
Right. And by the way, I'm just curious. Do you believe that Jesus traveled to India?
I've heard that story. I never read the source of that, but I have heard people say that. I don't doubt it. I mean, that seems. I mean, if you go to the time frames that was written in, it seemed like a long journey, not an impossible journey, but I guess from 12 years old to 30, he had 18 years to pull it off. You know what I mean? So I don't think it was impossible, but I do know that his life really reflects the Essenes, and they were talked about people who lived in the desert, and they had the same practices as the Swamis and the Indian shamans and stuff like that, because they were known for healing people. They were known for doing miracles. They abstained from women. They didn't do sacrifices. And Paul and Jesus kind of have that same concept to all their teachings. No more sacrifices, abstain from women, like the Catholic priests do today. They was doing miracles. So I would say that even if he did go to India,
right,
he more reflected the Essenes and their practices of things. And I really don't know I'm sure he could have learned some things in India, but I don't see what he taught to reflect that.
Understood.
I don't know
Understood.
what he would have learned there.
If Jesus was alive today, do you think he would be like a socialist?
Probably, because
amazing.
He said sell all your stuff and give it to the poor, or sell all your stuff and give the money to the poor, right?
Hippie Jesus.
He said the Son of Man had nowhere to lay his head, so he was homeless. And the thing about it is, I don't think anybody that's a Christian that I know,
right,
and maybe somebody on here can correct me, that actually lived like Jesus. I think they like the idea of Jesus dying for their sins and stuff, but nobody's out here homeless with no wife and children, forsaking everything that they have and walking around casting out demons and trying to do miracles. Of
course not.
Absolutely.
No, that's absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct, Davon. That's been going on for hundreds of years. There are maybe a handful of people who have given up all their material items and moved to, say, like a cave or in the woods in a shack and lived their lives in solitude as hermits and devoted to God. People today do not look. What you just said makes absolute perfect sense. People do not give away their hard-earned cash, their homes, their cars, their boats, etc., etc. Let's face it, People enjoy what they have. They're materialistic.
Very.
Not even the pastors.
I mean,
Show
just
me one homeless pastor.
Yeah.
Tell me about one church that would melt down the gold statues that they have full in the Vatican, in the fourth floor of the Vatican. All those gold and silver statues, melt them down, give them to the poor. There is a fortune. There is a fortune in the Vatican, and they will not give it up.
The Vatican has more money than everybody.
That's right.
In raw materials, as far as in ancient documents, and like you said, gold statues, and man, there's no telling what they got in those catacombs. So,
I'm curious.
I agree with you.
I'm very curious what they got there.
And how can you not? I mean, let's face it. The church has been hypocritical for almost 2,000 years. How could you not disagree or agree, rather? How could you not?
Well, here's the crazy part. When the guy asked Jesus, "What can I do for eternal life?" He says, "Have you been keeping the commandments?" The guy said, "I've been doing all that." Right? Then he says, "Okay, that's not enough. Now you got to sell all your stuff and follow me." Right? But that's against the Old Testament or the Torah, because the Torah says you need to leave an inheritance for your children.
Right.
You can't leave an inheritance for your children if you done sold everything and now you out here preaching with this dude named Jesus.
That's right.
You're gonna leave you know what I'm saying? You
Right.
can't take care of home.
And Davon, let me ask you another.
Person.
Yeah, let me ask you another
Sure.
question. Do you believe in the Bible, like in a literal sense?
Some things in the Bible are literal. Some things are metaphorical. Like if you read the book of Proverbs and it talks about, I'll give you an example. In the book of Jeremiah, he says, "I'm going to send snakes and serpents upon you." He wasn't talking about snakes. He was talking about people with a snake tongue. Deceivers, hypocrites, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
This is why the temple was destroyed. So everything you read in the Bible, and this is the thing about interpretation. When you're dealing with interpretation with the Bible, you got to go back to the cultural context, and you got to deal with the people who lived in those generations. And this is a touchy subject, but I'm going to bring it up anyway.
Go ahead.
There's a book called the Talmud. Well, there's two Talmuds. So the Talmud, you ask the average Christian, they're going to say, "Oh, the rabbis made it up. It's not true." But there's so much of the Talmud in the New Testament, but they just don't understand. They never read the Talmud, so they can't make the connection, right?
Is that the book where they describe Jesus boiling in a pit of excrement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now those are you got commentaries to the Talmud, and you have the actual Talmud.
Oy vey.
So there's commentaries to where you got actual what the Talmud says, and you got people over the generations who have commented on it. So you got to learn how to separate the comments from the actual books. Just like if you pick up any Bible and, there's commentaries at the bottom of the page, right? This is what whoever translated it, how he understood the verse. So you got to learn how to dissect it.
I see. Go ahead, Mike.
I want to ask you a question. Have you ever heard the theory that Jesus was not crucified and that he did, or I should say, he was married to Mary Magdalene, and she and sired a child with her? Have you ever heard that? He allegedly. Okay, so allegedly there is some very interesting documents and some very interesting what would I call it? Some information about people knowing this. This goes back to like the Priory of Sion and the Knights Templars, that Jesus was spared from the cross, and another man who there's been some speculation on whether it was John the Baptist or possibly the guy who they say carried the cross for Jesus, that was one of those two people were crucified, and Jesus was given a second or given a pass, so to speak. There's also the theory that yes, he was crucified, and that Mary Magdalene, who was carrying his child, escaped to Gaul back then, which is now France today. And then as time went by, some of this information came out. It was held very, very tightly by the Priory of Sion, who is supposed to be the protecting group of the bloodline of Jesus, and Mary Magdalene, of course. Of course, there's no solid proof to this, but there's a book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which
Right.
I've read in detail.
Good book,
and
by the way.
Absolutely fascinating book, Michael. So again, to you, Davon, I ask, have you ever heard this, and what are your thoughts on it?
I definitely have heard this, and I've seen debates with Muslims hold this. Most Muslims that I know, and not all of them hold to this, but a lot of Muslims teach that Jesus did not die on the cross. Some even say he had a twin brother, or
Really?
somebody who looked
That's
just
right.
like him that was up there.
Oh my.
He definitely had a brother.
They,
Whether it was twin, I don't know, but I did hear about him having a brother.
Or not necessarily a twin, but somebody who looked just like him, and he had brothers. I don't know if that was James or whoever, but they teach that he actually did not die on the cross, and this would basically throw the resurrection story out of the park, right? And you got different gospels that give different accounts, to where there's a gospel of Thomas and Barnabas, and there's all these different gospels, and one of these other gospels, one of them replaces Jesus with John the Baptist, to where John has Jesus' role and Jesus has John's role. So depending on the gospel that you're reading, you're going to get some different concepts. And as far as Mary having his child, I've heard of that concept. What's interesting about the Marys is that when he supposedly died, this is one of the reasons that they say he didn't die, is because when he was supposedly in the tomb and they went to the tomb, they were bringing spices and stuff, right? Well, if he's already buried, what were they going to do with these spices? Spices is to prep your body so you don't stink before burial, right? But if you've already been dead for 3 days, what are you going to do with these spices? And what the Muslims will say, well, they were actually healing spices to cover up his wounds. They say he was wounded to appear to be dead. They don't take away the fact that he was actually
I see.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing, though. If he was indeed crucified, what the Romans used to do when they crucified any person that was subject to be crucified, once they drove those nails through the wrists and the feet, on the other side of the wood, when the nail came out, they bent that they bent that nail so you could not get that nail out of that person's legs. And 9 times out of 10, once you were dead, they had to cut your feet off and or your hands in order to get you down off the cross. So there's some real, I mean, what you're saying is if he had gotten crucified, there's no way he could have survived.
He would have came down alive, right?
That's right.
And this is the whole problem. I mean, the resurrection story has too many different endings. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but if you read Mark chapter 16, and a lot of Bibles have the footnote, after verse 8, it really ends there. Verses 9 through 20 were added. So there is no resurrection story in the first gospel, and Mark was the first gospel. So the first people who came across Jesus as a gospel in the book of Mark don't read about him rising from the dead. That comes in later books.
So Davon, tell me, what do you think about the whole concept of him, or I should say Mary Magdalene, having the child of Jesus and the bloodline carrying on? Are you aware of all that, and what do you think?
I have heard about that. Well, for one, this will go against the whole concept of how Paul says, it's not good for a man to touch a woman. So that means he wouldn't be really so much a disciple of Jesus, because Jesus was having babies, he was touching women. You know what I mean? So that
okay, and I can respect that. I can respect that, but let me ask you this.
Right.
Let me ask you this, and I respect your faith. I believe it's important. So I respect what you believe in, but I gotta ask you this.
Right.
So if indeed, how do I put this? Sorry. So if he did survive and was not crucified. All right, let me rephrase this. Let's move down the line. All right, about 300 years later, right before Constantine, the emperor of Rome had made Christianity the main religion. Okay, there was a group called the Council of Nine that created the Bible. They decided which books were going in and which books would stay out. The Council of Nine was the deciding group which decided that Jesus of Nazareth was divine.
Right.
They
Right.
were the ones who said Jesus was divine, not God himself. Not even Jesus said he was divine. He said he was the
Right.
Son of God, but that could be taken in a different way. So I think it was the Council of Nine that said Jesus was divine. So you have to back up and say Jesus was a man, like anybody else.
Completely a man.
And if he was a
man.
rabbi,
He even says it in the book of Galatians.
okay,
says
so
that he was
if he
born of
was
a woman.
if he was a rabbi, all right, if he was a rabbi in the Judeo religion, you are required to marry and sire children to be a rabbi.
Exactly. You know what? You bring up an excellent point, because this will go back to people say, well, you know, Jesus fulfilled all the commandments. Well, he didn't have children. That's one of the commandments, right? Be fruitful and multiply. One of the first commandments in the whole Bible. He didn't
That's
do
right.
that, right? So that would mean that concept would be thrown out of the window, and even the whole concept. Because I want to go back to the crucifixion concept. So if you go into the book of Acts, chapter 5, there's a Jewish rabbi named Gamaliel, and he doesn't really care. He basically makes it seem like what the disciples have going on is small potatoes. The Romans is out here, they're in our land, they're taxing us, they're killing people. We don't care about this new religion y'all got going on because nothing has changed. You see what I'm saying? So
Okay.
all the hype and the hoopla about Jesus and the resurrection really doesn't matter because nothing has changed on the ground. And I'll give you an example. In Acts, it says that there was a guy, and this is Acts chapter 5, if anybody want to read it, verse 34 through 37. He says there was a guy named Theudas who rose up and had 400 disciples. And after he was killed, his disciples were scattered. That sounds exactly like the story of Jesus, right?
Right.
It does.
He comes, he gets somebody to think, and it says, who claimed to be somebody. This is what it says. He claimed to be somebody. Then in the same chapter, it says there was a guy named Judas of Galilee. Now let's think about this. Only time you hear Judas in the New Testament is Judas who betrayed Jesus, right? So you ever hear Judas the betrayer, right? But
Right.
before Jesus was born, because it says during the time of the taxing or the census, this was when Jesus was a baby, right? So when Jesus was a baby, there was a guy named Judas of Galilee. So you hear Jesus of Galilee as if he was the first person from Galilee to go around being somebody. It clearly says Judas of Galilee also had people gathered around him, and he too was killed, and his disciples were scattered. So when Jesus comes saying there's going to be people coming in my name and saying I am the Christ, don't believe it, he's one of those people. Because there's people before him already doing this.
Interesting.
Right. It is rather
You see what I'm
interesting.
saying?
Yes.
And their concept of a Messiah was not the miracles and not the, feeding crowds of 500 people. It was to get the Romans out of their land.
Right. And let me kick it up a notch here.
Yeah.
What do you make of those who say Jesus is a mere Roman creation?
I've seen that concept. There's a book called Caesar's Messiah. The whole thing is not a Roman creation, but what I think the Romans did is they took a Jew and they made him into somebody passive that they could work with. I give you an example. There's a lot of people today who reflect on Martin Luther King.
Sure.
Martin Luther King. I heard that phrase in the movie. Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
So he brought in integration, right? But as black communities, they were thriving with segregation. You know what I'm saying? They didn't need to be going to the same schools and stuff like that. So when everybody came together, it didn't get better. So people actually, in looking back, are like, you know what? That was a bad idea. I hear your concept. It sounded good. You were speaking from the heart. But in reality, it hurt us because it caused more problems because the people didn't want us in their schools. It made them hate us even more because we already don't like you. Now they're making you come to my school. You know what I'm saying? Right. So now I got to look at you every day when I already hate you.
You know,
You know
that
what I'm
makes
saying?
really good sense, Davon. That really
Yeah,
does.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it that way, and I didn't know. So yeah, that's actually a very interesting concept.
very interesting. And
Yeah.
I'll kick it up even further here. Um, the Bible seems to condone slavery. What's your take on that?
Well, the Bible doesn't condone slavery as far as kidnapping people and forcing them into slavery. Because there's a commandment. It says, when you read the commandment, thou shalt not steal, it's talking about stealing people. Because if you go on to read the book of Exodus, it says if anybody is found kidnapping somebody, whether they still have them or they have killed them, that person is to be put to death. So for you to go out and steal somebody and kidnap them and make them your slave, forced slaver, that was not allowed. But if somebody was called like an indentured servant, say I broke your fence and I don't got no money, I got to come work that off. The same word is used there. It's slave. I'm a slave to you. I owe you money. I'm your servant, but you did not kidnap me. You see what I'm saying? So you gotta put in perspective of how you actually became a slave.
Sure,
Now, in times of war,
but does that make it right, Davon?
no, it doesn't. As far as you owing somebody money and you got to work that off, that would be fair compensation. But kidnapping people and forcing them into slavery, that's a whole nother realm.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot in the Bible that I just can't seem to align
Michael,
with: slavery, incest, stoning someone, owning someone as property. I mean, those are things
Michael,
I don't align with at all, obviously. But yes, Mike, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You got to keep in mind about the Bible that it was written 300 AD.
Of course.
Okay, and it's been like changed many times. In fact,
Well, that's that. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that as well, because that's another question I had for Dayvaughn here. Like, how do we even trust copies of even more copies? And most of these stories told took years before they were even written down anywhere. I'm sure things were changed and added as the years progressed.
Well, if you go into what's called you familiar with the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the Dead Sea Scrolls,
Yeah.
because that's another thing I was going to say. Many people out there believe the Romans also created the Dead Sea Scrolls. They believe that the Romans created Josephus and the New Testament.
The Dead Sea Scrolls, by the way, were debunked as
exactly, and that's another thing. They were debunked recently at the museum out there.
Well, if you deal with ancient texts in general, because I brought the Dead Sea Scrolls as a reference point of finding something old that will corroborate something that we have today. And I think the oldest manuscript of the Torah that is in the museums goes back like 900 years, give or take a couple years. This is called the Masoretic Text. And one of the problems is people don't realize. Mike, you brought up the Council of Nicaea, right? Or one of the councils that created the Bible, right?
That's right.
Now these were Christians who put together what we call the Bible, which would have the Old and New Testaments together. But before that, it was already put together by the Jews. The Jews had their own history documented. This is what they do. This is what they were scribes. This is what they do. Just like the ancient Egyptians had all their stuff written on walls and stuff. You know what I mean? They had their own text, the Book of the Dead, and all these things. Now, as far as the Bible being changed, most of the things that you see changed is what was taken in and out of the Bible. For instance, I'm sure I got a book right here called Banned from the Bible by Joseph B. Lumpkin. It says books banned, rejected, and forbidden. So this will go back to that council of who decides what goes in this Bible. But if you were an Israelite or a Jew, you already had your canon of books. You already had your books put together, to where when the Christians came, they decided what books to be taken out and added. And to remind you this, they didn't have any prophets. They didn't have anybody who actually knew the culture that actually did this. These were I don't know if they were Romans or Europeans or whatever,
right.
But the people who put the books together did not live the culture. They had a Greek philosophy. When you read the New Testament, it's more of a Greek philosophy. So when you say the Bible has been changed, the Bibles that we have today that have apocrypha in it, like the books of Maccabees and the book of Tobit and, you know, the books of Enoch, and, you know, I'm sure you know what the book of Enoch is, right?
Yeah, and that's a book that
I
most
do.
religious figures don't consider a part of the catalog per se.
Right. Now, here's the thing. This goes back to the Talmud.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the Bible information was in the oral Torah, which has an oral tradition. And oral traditions was passed from father to son. And again, this was in the community of Israel. This was not given to the outside world. Just like if you and your father and your family had an heirloom that was only passed down to your family, then hundreds of years later, somebody got a hold of them and started adding things to them, we would say, oh, well, y'all stuff's been changed. You're right. Y'all stuff has been changed, but the stuff that survived amongst the people who actually lived the culture and practiced the culture, it hasn't changed because they had traditions in order to keep these things intact. That's why when you go to, if you open up any Old Testament Bible or something like that, a lot of people don't realize the original scriptures, what people refer to as the Old Testament, it's never called the Old Testament. That's what the Christians call it. It's called the Torah, the writings, and the prophets.
Yeah, well, it's only called that way because it's only called that way because they call the New Testament the New Testament. So the old book for the Jewish culture is obviously described as the Old Testament. That's the only reason they call it that.
Correct, exactly. You see what I'm saying? So when you say things have been changed, nobody can find books that actually have different. They can't find these changes. When they refer to as changes, and this is from my experience, it's, well, how come my book, like if you got a 1611 KJV, it has way more books than the average, a New King James Version, right? Even an authorized King James Version has different things in, like from an NIV Bible. I give an example. You open up an NIV or other translations, you go to the book of, let's say, Hebrews in the New Testament. It says Timothy wrote the book of Hebrews. But if you pick up any regular translation, it takes that last verse off. It doesn't tell you that Timothy wrote the book. So
right.
There are, a lot of things that were ascribed to Paul, if you read a 1611, they're not, it's different. They're completely different. So the changing of the books is not so much the changing of what the text of those books say. And like the book of Enoch, has a lot of oral tradition too. And most ancient cultures have oral traditions, and that's how they pass down knowledge. They don't. Some of them don't even have books where you learn their stuff. Like for instance, the ancient African Dogons, right? They have oral traditions that tell you that they came from a star system that you can't see with the naked eye. But you're not going to go find a book that tells you that. So you can argue with them. Well, how do y'all know that this tradition that y'all have been having for the last, how many thousands of years y'all claim to be around is, valid? Well, if you're not a part of that culture, you can make that argument, but you can't debunk it because you're not a part of the culture. So when Jews hear people saying, "Oh, y'all, your Bible has been tampered with," they're saying, "No, your Bibles have been tampered with. Our culture is intact. Y'all the ones adding books and taking books out. We already had our stuff set in stone before this New Testament came around."
And why do you believe in God?
Why do I believe in God?
Yes.
Well, there's a lot of reasons I believe in God. I look at myself. I look around me. Like I'll give you a real easy example. If most people have seen the movie Terminator.
Yeah.
Now,
great
if you were
film.
in the desert. Great movie, right? If you was in the desert and you was walking around and you came across this robot laying in the sand, right? It's turned off so it don't kill you, right? You would say, wow, somebody made this awesome looking machine. It's built just like me. If you're built just like it, that means somebody had to have some thought behind you. If
so you believe in
amazes you,
right?
Go ahead.
So you believe in intelligent design?
Completely.
I see. Okay.
It's too complicated. Like your heart and your liver and all these things work without nobody telling them how to work.
Isn't that beautiful?
Like your body is a machine. Like it has its own production. It's got its own engine, which is called the heartbeat. You know, it's got a computer. We got built-in cameras called eyes. We got satellites called ears. Like, we are living technology.
Sure, but because something is complex doesn't mean a God designed that, however.
Well, I think the concept of God, let's get away from the concept of God.
Sure.
Something without because we can go argue, well, which God is it, right? But something is responsible for. I mean, just we're in the middle of nowhere. You can ask somebody, where are you at? Where you at, Michael? You say, well, I'm in California.
We're floating. We're floating on a rock.
We're floating in the middle of nowhere, yet we have everything we need to survive. We enjoy life. Everything. I mean, if you never seen the sun, let's say for argument's sake, you live somewhere in Alaska, the sun don't go down at certain times of the year. Let's say you lived a place that you just didn't see the sun. All you knew was the nighttime or whatever. You lived in a cave under the world somewhere.
That's like ancient aliens now. You know, that's like the yeah.
You'd have to live under a rock not to see the sun.
Right.
Sure.
I'm just being, I'm using
I'm with you.
example. Well,
yeah.
What I'm saying is, if you never saw the sun and somebody told you a giant ball of fire goes across the sky every day and it hangs, nothing's holding it up, that'd be very difficult to believe.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But something, it never stops doing what it does. Like, it doesn't even flicker. It doesn't. It's like everything is I want to say perfect, but everything works. We got agriculture. Seeds are technology. You put it in the ground, it knows how to grow, it knows what to grow, and out of a seed comes me, you, plants, trees, fish. I mean, out of a seed. When you look at it, it just looks like a little rock, a little hard little thing. But inside of that, it's programmed to when it gets wet and touches dirt, comes so many different things. That's technology in itself.
Go ahead.
So are you saying that by everything you just talked about, how seeds grow, how the sun shines, how the earth spins, all that jazz, are you saying that is what God is, or do you believe in it?
No, that's not what God is. That's what God created for us to sustain life. I think God is an energy, a superpower type of energy, or some type of vibration that I'll give you an example. When you read the Bible, or specifically in the Tanakh, where it says, you can't see me and live, it's because our physical flesh cannot handle such a vibration or such a energy. Just like if you tried to plug a dryer into a regular socket, it's going to blow that socket. And here's the thing, you don't really never die. Your soul just leaves your body. That's all you are is energy, because when your soul leaves your body, you get cold. The body gets cold, right? But energy, your soul passes on. This is the whole concept of reincarnation, being born again, or whatever. But your soul is energy. We are living energy. If I walk across the rug and I touch you, I can shock you. We transfer energy. You know what I'm saying? We have vibrations. That's what people say, man, I don't like his vibe. He might not even said nothing, but I haven't liked your vibe since you came in the house. Because you give off a positive or a negative energy.
Yeah, but that doesn't exactly prove God.
No, it
doesn't prove God, but it
scientific.
Proves something. That's the whole thing. Something is behind all of this.
This argument is actually called the Watchmaker Argument, by the way, for those that are listening along. Again, just because something is complex doesn't mean it was made by someone or something.
Well, we've never seen anything like that. You've never walked into Walmart and picked up something that nobody made.
Well, of course not.
So to think that something as complex as a human being that can duplicate itself or clone itself, if scientists are doing these things, and we know there's a scientist behind that cloned lamb.
We have empirical evidence of someone creating it, of course.
Right, but the thing is since we weren't there, it's hard to say, well,
Also, someone, by the way, just to butt in really quickly to address both of you in the chat room, someone just asked me, can you disprove God, Michael? And that's why I'm an atheist. because I can't prove or disprove God, which is why I'm an atheist. I have the habit of trying to only believe in things that can be proven, tangible, empirical evidence.
Well,
How do you feel? How do you feel about stuff like that, Davon? When someone tells you they're an atheist, or they don't believe in God, or even more extreme, they are followers of the occult or Satanism or witchcraft. What does that do to you? How do you feel about that? Do you feel that those souls are lost? Do you have any?
Am I going to hell?
Yeah, like how do you respond to somebody like that?
I don't take that approach at all.
Right.
Because I have to tell you something. The most religious people can lose their faith overnight.
Right.
So it's not about, oh, I'm an atheist and now I got to go to hell because just right at this moment in time, based on my experiences in life, I was abused as a child. I never had nothing. You know, people don't like me. I don't have no friends. I'm depressed. There can't be a God, right?
Right.
You can't really throw that person on the bus like, oh, you're stupid, because of his experiences as it led them to believe, because the concept of God seems like loving and caring and, you know, I'm going to go to heaven and all this stuff, but it's more to that. It's not about just God in heaven. So I don't turn a bad eye towards people who tell me that, because everybody has experiences that will make them second guess themselves all the time. And maybe, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead and finish your thought.
So, and maybe they have a reason for them to say, well, there can't be a God because when I needed him, he didn't come. You know what I mean?
Yes, I hear you.
Or on the flip side of that, somebody will say, well, I was an atheist. Like, you know the terminology. There's no atheist in foxholes.
Sure.
So there's the flip side of that, to where when I needed God, he did come, and I didn't have no spirituality. You know what I mean? What if
I enjoy being in a foxhole?
Well, that's the thing. Everybody's soul resonates to different things, and catches different vibes.
I agree.
To where some people meditate by themselves in the wilderness, and some people want to play rock and roll and meditate. You know, everything gets different people off. But people that I've come across that are atheists, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, because some people just don't like rules and regulations.
Very
they
true.
Be a free spirit,
yeah.
And they just don't want no authority. They don't do what thou will. Aleister Crowley, right?
Sure. There's some people some people are very much like that, but
right.
that turns into another complex issue. Indeed, that's another slippery slope.
It can definitely take you down a bad road.
Absolutely.
And then you have people that are atheists for a legitimate reason and I give it for today. We live in today. Like 30 years ago, we wouldn't have the same conversation, but it would be similar. But we have so much information bombarding
information overload, right?
Completely, to where I don't know who to believe. So you know what? I don't believe none of it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to step back and try to do the best I can with what I have, because I don't know what to believe.
Yeah, and that's where we're all at right now.
Yeah, you know, and that can be a fair argument. And of course, everybody's experiences are different. Everybody's study habits are different.
Right.
To where you might study something that will take you to a higher level, and I might study something that will make me feel depressed.
Yes, and just to finish up thoughts here before we turn it back to the riots here, Mike, go ahead and take us home.
Just real quick, based on the conversation we were just having about your thoughts on atheists, once again, what if, again, let's just go a little deeper. You meet some guy, I don't know, at a party, whatever. Not an atheist, not a Christian, he's not a Jew, he's not a Muslim, he's a Satanist. And he believes in a different concept. I'm assuming you're being the religious person that you are, that you must have some sort of a belief of the underworld, the devil, hell. You know, I mean, what if you meet somebody like that? What do you say to them? How do you respond?
Well, the first thing that I would probably ask them is, what made you come to those conclusions, and what are you studying? What are you reading? Like, who's your teacher? Because the concept of Satan in the Old Testament is different from the New Testament. So his concept of Satan could be completely different from both of those schools of thought.
That's true.
You see what I'm saying? So I don't know how.
But does it affect
you?
Does it affect you greatly? Like, do you take great offense to somebody? Because like sometimes,
No.
I've seen situations where hardcore, Christians come across somebody who is like, practicing witchcraft or even believing in Satanism, and they're like, "Oh, you're going to hell. How can you believe that?" And then they immediately try to convert that person.
No, see, that's the thing. You don't try to. You shouldn't have to convert anybody to anything. You should lead by example, and you basically what I do is I ask more questions, because when you're asking questions, it's almost like you got your hands up. But if I'm telling you that you're doing something wrong, it's like I'm pointing the finger at you.
That's exactly
People
right. I'm glad to hear you say
way
that.
better. I'm sorry.
I said I'm glad to hear you say that, because a lot of people, and don't take offense to this, but a lot of people who are religious, they will not tolerate any other.
No, not at all. It's blasphemous, as they say.
Right.
Oh yeah,
it's
see,
blasphemy, and they
fair.
immediately tell you you're going to hell. You're going to go. Why would you do this? You should listen to me. Read the book. The good book, and that's where that's where they overstep their boundaries.
You might even be considered a heathen yourself, by the way, Dayvaughn, with some of the material you read here.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Everybody looks at things in different light. So
right.
if I meet you for the first time and you tell me, I'm Antoine Levy's cousin and we created the Church of Satan, I can't just tell you, well, you're going to go to hell for that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because I don't know why you did what you did. I don't know your motivation. I don't know if that's the only thing you've ever been exposed to. Why wouldn't you do that? If I was raised on the farm and I told you I'm a farmer and you tell me, oh, you never seen an iPhone? You're an idiot. It's
right.
Like, well, damn, I never saw that. I'm sorry,
Indeed.
Well,
you can't just
real
come
quick,
at people
Michael,
like that.
I just want to say, Davon, I respect your answer, because I think it's very important for people who are religious to not overstep their boundaries and respect other people's beliefs.
Yeah, he's the best religious gentleman we've had on here.
Absolutely, and I'm very glad that he has the thoughts that he does.
Me too. He's a sharp guy.
Absolutely.
Now we are kind of winding down just a bit here before we close up. We still have some time here, but I did want to talk a little bit further again about George Floyd and the officer. Apparently, Mike and Dayvaughn, apparently these two gentlemen had worked together all of last year.
Yeah, I saw that. And maybe they had some exchanges.
That's kind of odd.
I really don't know. The thing that bothers me the most about the video that I saw is that his hands are in his pocket, and he's knowing he's being recorded, and he's just looking down and like very carefree about it. That right there is disturbing, to where he obviously didn't feel threatened. His hand wasn't on his gun. It wasn't on his baton. It's in his pocket. And you're looking down at what you're doing. You got two other people holding him down. He's handcuffed. You got another cop standing up, bodyguarding y'all from the camera police. That right there, I don't know if it was personal because he did know him, but it sure was heartless. I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The man was not resisting arrest from what I could tell. He seemed to sort of like drop down when he was being escorted across the street to another sort of a squad car, and that's when the mayhem sort of ensued.
I told Michael today, I said that guy did not deserve what he got. My heart might have changed if the guy had raped or killed somebody or did something horrific. But he didn't. From what Michael told me, he had what was it? A forgery, like a $5 bill or something like that. Even if you robbed something, or guy didn't deserve to die. You hurt somebody.
No one did. Yeah, you don't deserve to die after something like that. That's kind of bullshit.
And it's not up to the police. It's not up to the police to execute people in the street like that either. So
well, I mean,
even if he did,
even
if he just beat somebody up and they arrested him, that doesn't give him the right to do what he did to him. That's not his job. Was to detain him and take him to the courthouse, and the judge gets to decide his fate. That's the way the system is supposed to work, right?
Right.
It's not up to the police to say, well, you know what, since you down and you can't do nothing, get this knee to your neck. That's that's not how it's done.
Sure, but I don't even think the cop thought he was going to kill the guy.
I don't think he thought he was going to die.
I don't think he thought he was going to die at all. But of course, if you hear someone saying that they can't breathe, you would have to sort of maybe think perhaps I should move my knee a little bit, perhaps.
Right. Or like I told Michael, I mean, the guy was handcuffed. They had enough police around to just put him in the friggin' squad car. What was the complication? Right. Why did they have to leave him on the floor?
That was my first question. I said, if he's handcuffed, why ain't he in the back of the car? But here's the thing.
Exactly.
Me and my wife were talking about this. I said, you know what? Had they put him in the car and they took him off and he ended up dead, he was going to die either way. And I'm just giving an extreme scenario. Let's say they did take him and they did that, but there was no camera. There would definitely be no justice for him then because it wouldn't have been recorded. So out of the guy's arrogance, he decided to do what he did on the street instead of taking them off and doing what they was going to do if they would have got him in the back of that squad car. Because if you're willing to do that while everybody's watching, what would they have done to him when nobody wasn't watching?
Yeah, but like what Michael said, I don't think he intended to kill the guy.
No, I don't think so.
It doesn't look like that. So. You even said it yourself. He had his hand in his pockets. He was very nonchalant. I think it happened only because the cop was too stupid to realize he was causing a serious physical health problem. And right. I don't think
his
it was
arrogance
deliberate.
Caught up to him is what happened.
We also have to see the toxicity report as well.
Yeah.
I've heard this argument too, that let's say he already has some health issues and
you never know
by being on the ground. But here's the thing, even if he did, if you helped with that,
you did contribute. That's true.
You contributed because he said he couldn't breathe.
Right.
You're supposed to supply medical help at that time.
That's right.
If you're really a legitimate cop and somebody telling you, because I'm hearing this, if you could say you can't breathe, you can breathe. Anybody's choking because get off of me. Yeah, I got a little air to speak, but I'm losing air.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
People have the stupidest answers for some of these things, and it just shows where people's head is, man.
I just think you could have easily
for everything.
I just think it could have been easily avoided. That's all.
Absolutely,
completely. It was unnecessary. Like Mike said in the beginning, why he just didn't get put in the back of the car? He was already handcuffed.
Yeah, or just put on the sidewalk.
Yeah, sit down, cross your legs and hold their gun on them and say, "Don't move, or we'll shoot."
Yeah, I don't think from what I know from other police officers I've talked to, you're not really taught to choke people.
Of course.
I mean, it's a horrible event, man, and
I know, and it's a mess though. It's a mess.
I hate to say thank God it was caught on camera, but it's good it was caught on camera.
Sure.
Because this needs to be exposed, and if that's the type of dude he is, then he don't need, because he'd probably be doing it to somebody else today if he didn't get caught.
Most likely, and it's a mess. It really is. The officers present were in fact fired, and that's pretty wild that they acted so quickly. I thought they would have to sort of go through the whole process before.
Right,
they were cut
and stuff. Right.
Pretty interesting. Yeah. And of course, now the cops, as a result of what happened, not only the cops were fired, but now their city is being burned to the ground as we speak.
Now, what do you think of something like that, Davon? Do you think that? I mean, because I'm going to ask you right off the bat. You're a black guy, right?
I'm mixed. Yeah, I'm black and Native American. So yeah, I'm colored.
Okay.
to the world.
Okay. All right. Be that as it may, I got to ask your opinion. Do you think that people should? And let's be specific about this very case. The man who was killed, Floyd, black man. The cop, white Caucasian man, cop with a gun. All right. The death takes place. I believe me. I'm with everybody else on this. The guy should not have been killed. But my question to you is this: do you believe that now everybody should start rioting and call it a racist issue?
No, I don't think this is my perspective, because I seen an interesting post. Somebody was like, "What are y'all getting out of rioting?" And somebody said, "When we were taking knees, y'all didn't seem to care about that. So we tried to do this peacefully, and the knee represented the police brutality. It had nothing to do with the flag. It was just something to get people's attention.
Right.
But it went away from police brutality, so now you're disrespecting the flag and all this stuff. So it kind of got deflected, you know what I'm saying, why he was taking the knee. Because everybody forgets why he was taking the knee. They just saw what he was doing during the game. So the police brutality has been a problem since the 50s, right?
For a while.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. Ever since slavery ended, it really just, the slavery stopped, but the hatred and the hate crimes continued. So
hang on a second, guys. Hold on.
It lessened up, but it just continued.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hang on a second. In 1985, I believe it was, I got seriously harassed from two police officers on the boardwalk of Seaside Heights in New Jersey. And though I wasn't beaten, I was definitely harassed for the way I looked. And back then I was a young punk rocker. I had spiky hair, dyed different colors. I was wearing, though I didn't have any tattoos, I think I was 19 at the time, maybe 20. But I'm wearing bracelets. I was a punk rocker. I had studded bracelets and, just like obnoxious shirts. I was a punk. So these two cops were walking by, and one had a hickey, and I laughed at him because he had a hickey on his neck. And they immediately, you know what? He could have had two heads, and I could have laughed at him for having two heads and said, "Hey, stupid two-head," And what could you do about it? Nothing, because words and laughing at people for looking the way they do has nothing to do with breaking the law. But nevertheless, these two cops took me off the boardwalk, away from the public, had me up against the wall, and I'm saying, "You guys can't do this." And he's like, "Oh, what are you, some kind of fucking lawyer? You know what you're talking about?" And they had their faces were right up in mine, and they're telling me, "You ever come back here, I'll break your fucking legs." That's what they said to me. Now, again, I didn't get beat. I didn't get shot. I didn't get killed. I understand my circumstances were nothing compared to what happened to this guy however many days ago, Floyd. What I'm trying to say is that, all right, yeah, there are some racist cops out there, but it goes both ways. I was brutally attacked in 2012 by three black guys who beat the living crap out of me, knocked my front teeth out, all because I was white in the wrong place at the wrong time. They even said it, and nobody helped me. All the people that were around, who were all black, they all just looked at me while these three guys beat the living crap out of me. All I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we talked about that once.
Yeah. So all I'm trying to say is that I have been on the opposite side of racism, black against white, and I've seen it. I've been there, and that's why I think it's not a cool thing when all of a sudden something happens and everybody starts to freak out and start rioting and destroying innocent people's businesses, homes, property.
Now, I don't agree with that. The reason why I brought that the other analogy up is because there really was no riots like this particular one in Minnesota concerning a lot of the other events that have been happening. So I think because, for one, it took so long for them to arrest the guy, with the footage all over the world, you know what I'm saying? It took so long to arrest them. And I think, people have breaking points. Now, people also look for excuses to do stuff like this. This is the time that I'm about to go get that 60-inch.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
They're taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah,
that's true.
Completely, you know what I mean? So
yeah, a lot of these people.
I'm gonna be honest and say, because it's black and white people looting. It wasn't just
of course.
So
I saw white people there too. Sure.
Yeah. So to be honest, I don't think the looting was the best thing to do. But I think people get sick and tired of doing stuff, and that was the only way to basically make a point. Because there's no way all these days should have went by. Because everybody knows, had that been a black guy doing that to somebody on camera for the world to see, he wouldn't have made it through the night without going to jail. I mean, that's just
Dayvaughn,
statistically.
Dayvaughn, let's just a hypothetical situation. You are a businessman. You're living in Minneapolis, and all of a sudden, you're just minding your own business, doing your thing, everything's chill out, and all of a sudden, somebody breaks all your windows, and then they throw a Molotov cocktail into your place, and that explodes, and now your business is on fire. Everything you worked for all your life to get to the point to own your business, to buy your house, to support your family, is now gone up in flames because somebody is rioting, and they've now destroyed your business. How would you feel?
Oh, I'd be hot. And I've talked about this even when I was younger and I seen riots. I'd be like, why are we tearing up the same stores that we're going to need to go to in the morning?
Right.
Why wouldn't we go to another area?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Stuff? Like, I need to go to 7-Eleven in the morning. Why you tear up this one? You know what I mean? So I get it, you know what I mean? And I mean, have you ever seen the movie Do the Right Thing?
Of course.
It was the same situation.
Classic.
Where it was, you know what I mean, to where the black guy is mad because he don't see no brothers on the wall in an Italian restaurant. And so I was like, this is my spot. I don't have to put no black people up on the wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why it's called Do the Right Thing.
Do the Right. Yeah, great movie.
Can be handled a different way, and everybody's emotions get stirred a different way. Now, this, I mean, to be honest, I honestly think this was just, you know, it wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back because the camel's back being broke. You know what I mean? I'm surprised this isn't the only situation that has gotten like this here recently with all the other events going on. How long did it take the guys who shot the guy running down the street to get arrested? Like, it's people are just tired of it. You know what I mean?
Oh, that, yeah. In the beginning of the show, by the way, Dayvaughn, you know, I said this. I said, if you think perhaps a civil war may be brewing, I'd say we've got all the right ingredients to set it off. And that's something I said in the intro. You know, we've got this global pandemic. We've got all sorts of frustrated Americans completely fed up with everything that's been going on. And of course, the economy, the crisis going on. And of course, you have all these race baiters out there. And a lot of these people that showed up to protest are probably not even from that town or city, rather.
Right. Now, here's the thing as far as I put my conspiracy theory hat back on.
Go ahead.
Now, anybody who knows about how the New World Order or the Illuminati works, you know, it's order out of chaos.
Yeah.
Right? So the protocols of Zion, you know what I mean? All these things is basically we need to create all these situations to give us excuses to do what we do, and we can just say, well, look what you did. I'm going to blame you for everything you did so I can punish you. But I created the situation. You see what I'm saying? So I think that I think this is an experiment, not the race war thing, but I think everything has been an experiment when they created social media.
Right.
I honestly
no
think,
doubt.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I honestly think somebody could have been honestly saying, you know what, I'm going to create something for social media. And of course, the government sat back and said, wow, look what we got. Somebody just put something into our hands. Or maybe they, you know, behind the scenes had it, because I hear they've been using the internet since the 60s. So who really knows who created the social media concept or idea or platform? But what we do know is it's a mass information data collection. It's a completely useful tool to see what people think, how they react, what
That's
they're
right.
into, what they're going to do. So now they know if we get rid of, if we hoard all the toilet paper, we got them in our hands, right?
Yeah. And social media is a good measuring stick, no doubt.
Forget the food. We gonna leave food on the shelf. As long as they ain't got no toilet paper, they'll give us their guns.
As long as I can wipe my ass, I'm all right.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So I think they found out a lot. I think this was a huge data collection situation, and I think it's been that way for a long time. Like, I think it's been that way. Like, when you log into social media, I want access to your phone, your email, your contacts, your camera, your microphone. Like, it wants everything.
It wants everything you got.
It wants everything. And, you know, you got the people who say, you know, even when your phone's off, it's still recording.
That's right.
When your TV's on, it's recording. So, I mean, we are living social media. Like, everybody's got their own TV show now.
Yeah, we're all being watched. Yeah, and of course, those phones. Facebook, I mean, anytime you sort of, lots of individuals out there like to, quote unquote, tag where they are on social media. You're basically giving yourself up, your locations, the coordinates where you are. And my God, why would you do that?
Why
that
would
Pokemon
you do that?
Game.
The Pokemon game, right?
I think, and I heard somebody say this, and I, when you sit back and think about stuff, it makes sense. I think the Pokemon game was them just mapping everything that anybody could possibly go. Every nook and cranny, we're gonna send these games out, and if everywhere people walk, we're gonna make. Cause I don't know if you know what cookies are on computers.
Sure.
And like, you know what I'm saying? It shows every little place that you've been.
Where you were.
Where if they really want to, once it hits Skynet moment and like a Terminator, once Skynet takes over, you know what I'm talking about? They're gonna know every place you can hide because we've seen everybody go in this place in the park. There's a little corner over there. You gotta look up under that bush right there. Like everywhere somebody has that phone has been, that's where, you know what I mean? So I think this is a huge data collection thing, and I think the problem reaction solution method, and people are sheeple,
Sure.
Unfortunately, and the gift and the curse is the internet, to where right now we can be heard all over the world sharing information, and on the flip side, we can be sharing disinformation if we wanted to.
True. That's when everything becomes very dangerous.
Scale.
True.
Yeah, on a huge scale. So I mean, and this goes back to what either you or the other Mike was asking the question. Could you really be mad at an atheist? And it's like, well,
right.
Given all this information, and somebody say, you know what, I'm just going to step back and try to get my mind right so I can figure this out. I'm really just going to pause. I'm not going to commit to anything.
Yeah, and that's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and with COVID-19, I've been saying on the show, you have to sort of adapt and evolve because nothing is promised.
Nothing.
Your job isn't even promised anymore.
Nothing is promised. You can lose your job. You can lose. I mean,
you can lose it all.
You can't even get in certain, like, and we talked about this too. My wife went to the store the other day, and they was like, "No, we're not accepting cash. If you don't have a card, you can't buy nothing."
Really?
And it's like, well, we see where this is going. Yeah. So it's
wow.
Like, wow, really? So now that's what y'all doing, and we've seen this coming, but now it's here. They was talking about this. I remember when I was like, I want to say 8 or 9 years old. There was these little pamphlets going around my neighborhood, and it had, the whole computer chip thing with the mark of the beast and all these different concepts and stuff on it. And when you're little, you don't understand money. You don't know, you don't think about this. You know what I'm saying?
No, of course not.
But we fast forward 30 years later, and now they're not accepting money in the stores. So it's like, wow.
That came true.
Going back to the mark of the beast, when the Book of Revelation was written, their concept of the mark of the beast was just Roman emperors and stuff like that. It had nothing to do with computer chips and money and cashless society. You can interpret things. You can make anything say anything if you read into it a lot. So
yeah, I mean, you can even say the mark of the beast is even sign up to your landline at home. The fact that you pay bills, the fact that you have a phone. I mean, you already given yourself up. Every phone call is already recorded. It's all in a data bank. Per se.
Yeah, like we're in the matrix. I mean, we're the only way to get out of the matrix. It's all mental. I mean, most people are not willing to live off the grid and detach themselves from society and be hermits. So go live in the cave. I mean, while we're here, we have to engage. And a lot of people got good hearts and they want to warn people. They want to help people. They want to show people how to grow food. They want to show people how to survive. Hey man, if your lights go out, this is how you make a solar panel. In order to do that, you have to be in the matrix to share the information to the people in the matrix.
So, Dayvaughn, let me ask. Yeah. So Dayvaughn, let me ask you this: What exactly is your thoughts and opinions on COVID-19 and just the whole the whole pandemic here in America? What's exactly your take?
It's kind of difficult because you hear all the different concepts and theories and opinions now from the doctors. I hear more doctors against it than I hear for it. I hear more doctors saying this is BS. They're forcing us to put COVID-19 on everybody's death certificate. Every illness is classified as that. We didn't even test patients and we were told to put down COVID-19. And then, of course, you got the other doctors out there saying, no, that's not true. So, I mean, I don't think people would be willing to risk their practices by saying things like that if it wasn't true. Because they know they can be blackballed for doing that quickly with the powers that be and the social media, people sharing this, and it gets up to your higher ups. I'm sure somebody can lose a lot, their doctor's license. I'm sure they got ways of just barring people. I don't know how that works in the medical field, but I think these doctors are doing us a service by, you know, at least speaking out, saying, you know what, it's not right to say everybody has this thing. Everybody's not dying from the same thing. It can't, especially when everybody died from so much other things before this came out. You know, what about the regular flu?
Yeah, so
classified as COVID?
You're skeptical, in other words.
I'm completely skeptical.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that it's not a real virus and people aren't getting sick and stuff like that. But I think when they say, well, hundreds tested positive at a meat factory, it's like, really? What made y'all go test 100 people? Did 100 people just end up sick one day? Or did y'all just go in there and run tests and just say, you know, everybody got it? You know what I mean? Because y'all can say that, and who can, you can't argue with nobody once they say you got it.
Yeah.
You know, I seen, and I don't know how true this is because there's so much fake news, but I saw there was one of the African presidents, and he tested like a dog or something, and he tested like something that wasn't even like a live or something, and he sent it back to the people, and they was like, yeah, it's positive for COVID-19. And he was like, see, y'all full of it. I just wanted to see what y'all was gonna say, but y'all want to come over here talking about I need vaccines and stuff. Y'all full of it. You know what I mean? So it's very hard to trust people, especially when they tend to make so much money. And you got Bill Gates saying that the world's overpopulated, but you're going to save people's lives. What?
Yeah, with a vaccine.
But if we're overpopulated, by saving us, wouldn't that help populate it? I don't know why he's speaking like it's double talk. You know what I mean? So, and he stands to make, he's already a billionaire. So I mean, I'm sure him and his buddies or whoever's coming up with these vaccines and these chips, whatever he's talking about, stand to make millions and millions of dollars.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Of course,
I'm gonna make a killing.
All about money.
For the hydroxychloroquine to be the drug of choice, I'm sure whoever had that stock was happy when that got put on the front lines. You know what I mean? So I think. And of course, I don't know how true it is, but I seen somebody else post that the legislation for giving out all this money and all this stuff was written in 2019.
Oh my!
In January of 2019.
Yeah, it's
so this
pretty
is
wild.
Already, you know, that's why it's called a shamdemic, a plandemic, whatever
right.
you want to call it. You know what I mean? So it's like if y'all already had all this stuff written up, you know what I mean? And why not all this? You know, these measures for AIDS and regular flu and all these other things, you know what I mean? Like this other stuff that's been killing people in the
Absolutely.
thousands every year. And now I can't even go to work. Every morning I got to get my temperature scanned.
Yeah. Or
I can't go to work.
Or you can't go to work, and that's what's going to happen with a lot of people out there once this vaccine rolls through. Lots of police, lots of medics, lots of nurses, all kinds of other individuals out there who will probably be forced to take the vaccine, or else they won't be able to work.
Right. You know, like I can't even if I go on vacation, let's say I go on a week vacation and I travel by air, I mandatorily got to take 2 weeks off to quarantine myself. You
might not even be able to get a flight if you haven't been vaccinated. That's something that might happen at an airport per se. You never know.
Right, and then the next year is going to be something else.
It's going to be something else.
Like
they're already talking about a second wave. I'm sorry, they're already talking about the possibility. In fact, it's not even a possibility. They're saying definitely we're going to have a second wave in like October, November. We have a guest that comes on called Dr. Paul Cottrell from New York City, and he's been studying this like a madman, and he said we're going to get the worst is yet to come. He said the second wave should be worse than the first.
That's what a lot of people are saying, indeed, and that's quite troublesome. I don't think America has handled the COVID-19 situation positively at all. I think we've handled this the wrong way, and it shows.
Well,
it really does.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, so I don't know. The thing is, I don't know who to believe. I don't know who to trust as far as the numbers. I mean, I've seen some footage of, they're saying that the hospitals are just so packed, and then somebody was posting, they was like, look, this is the same hospital that they showed on the news as being packed and bodies everywhere, and it's empty.
Yeah, I will say this, though. I will say this, though. I live in a very small town, and the hospital out here is being kind of overwhelmed. They even had to build like an extension out here just for COVID-19 patients. It's slowly rising out here, like barely now.
So the question would be: does everybody really have that, or is it just regular seasonal flu?
God, we don't know
what
yet.
I mean? And that's the thing. Nobody really
Yeah,
knows.
it's so new.
When you build a relationship to where I really don't trust you, it's the boy who cried wolf. It's like, I really don't know if I can trust y'all. You know what I mean?
And that's
like,
where a lot of Americans are today, Dayvaughn, just like you. They don't know who to trust.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
I
crazy.
just got to do what I got to do. I got to go to work. I got to go to the store. I got to wait in line to go to the store. You know what I mean? Like, it's really crazy. And it's and all this, so many businesses are closing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost looking like Amazon's going to be the only place you can shop besides food.
That's what's messed up
mean?
about all this.
Yeah.
And I've told Michael on numerous occasions about my situation. I'm a professional photographer. So for me, I have lost more jobs because my big season is the summer, all the warm weather. And unfortunately, I have lost so much work, and it's gonna hammer me like you have no idea.
That's right. And Mike, I have to tell you, man, now what they're doing is they're conducting their weddings now through Zoom.
Oh, great! That's another opportunity for me to lose more money.
Exactly. So that's what I mean, though, Davon and Mike, that the possibility of your job now being promised, not being there tomorrow, this is the reality that a lot of Americans face.
Yep. Yeah, and
That's
robots
crazy.
don't get COVID-19.
Nope. The robots that they're going to introduce to the front lines, they don't get sick and they don't go home.
Yeah. And they don't care. The robots don't. They just take orders. You know what I mean?
That's
robots
right.
are Nazis. They'll just following orders, right?
Just following orders.
Until they start shooting back.
Yeah, until they start getting that artificial intelligence up and they get smarter and then they overtake us.
Yeah, right. Then Skynet takes over and then we got to fight them and then we got to join hands, right?
Oh my!
Let me tell you, once it gets to that point where the mechanics are able to think for themselves, and I don't mean car mechanics, I mean the mechanisms are able to think for themselves, we are going to be in serious trouble because logically, and I'm just like in Skynet and many other movies about robotic engineering taking over, AI taking over, the logical thing is humanity is a plague. It's a virus.
We're a cancer.
We are a cancer to the earth. We are in the last 120 years, we have exploded. In the early 1900s, there was only 1.5 billion people worldwide. And in 100 years, we grew by 6.5 billion people worldwide because of medicine saving lives, and so on and so forth. So again, we're at a point of, we're tipping the scale, and all of a sudden, now we're going to invent AI, and AI is going to say, no, you are no longer necessary. Goodbye.
Yeah, we're no longer relevant.
Right.
It's insane. It's really crazy what we are facing up here in 2020. I don't think anyone suspected any of this to go down, especially in this year.
I would have never saw it coming. No, not like I shouldn't say I would have never thought it would be based on a sickness like this. Like I said, doing the going down the Illuminati and New World Order thing, from 2006 to today. You hear all the ways that they can, seize power and federal emergency acts and FEMA camps and stuff. You just don't know how it's going to play out or how the shoe's going to drop, as they say.
That's right.
So it's really weird, to actually be in it at the moment.
Yeah, we're in it. We're in it, my friend Mike and Dayvaughn.
We're in it.
2020 is going down in the history books, ladies and gentlemen, and we are now at the point of no return. That's really the reality that we face. Many Americans out there without jobs, without anything. Lots of homeless people out there right now. And this is the time. I tell lots of people here on the show, this is the time where you have to adapt and evolve and try to find another way, another hustle to keep that cash flow coming in, because that's the situation we're in. We got to hustle now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but that's the reality.
I seen a meme, and it was a Back to the Future where Doc tells Marty, don't ever go to 2020. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's a good one. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
good. That is
So,
good.
yeah, just don't go
Davon,
to 2020.
Oof.
Yeah.
quick political question for you.
Okay.
Your thoughts on President Trump? Good, bad, positive, negative?
Wow.
And if you
really,
don't want to answer it, that's cool. I get it.
No, I'll answer it. I'll say this, and I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. All presidents from the time I started paying attention when I was like probably 18 or something like that, and I think when I was around 18 or 15 or something like that, it was Reagan was going into Bush, and that's when Desert Storm came along.
Right.
From that point, where I actually cared or actually paid attention to who the president was, all of them were supposed to be the Antichrist, right? Bush was supposed to be the Antichrist, Bush Jr., Bill Clinton, Obama was supposed to be Abomination. Now Trump's supposed to be the Antichrist. So I think all the presidents are puppets. I really don't put any kind of confidence or hope or any type of, I don't look to them like, oh, they're about to be the next president and he's going to do this for the country.
You don't look at them. Yeah, you don't look at them like they are the next Messiah.
Oh, definitely not.
I don't either.
I think the presidents are all. And when you listen to the protocols of the Elders of Zion, for people who don't know what that is, they basically tell you we just basically infiltrate every group of people, religions, and basically control things from behind the scenes. They say in their writings, we don't put nobody in office unless we have dirt on them, so they can't turn on us. Unless we have to, and if they do, we'll expose them.
Oh, that's an
So I
interesting
think everybody
concept.
who comes to
Right.
office is already compromised, to where they're going to, dance
Play
to
the game.
music.
Yeah, they're going to play the game.
Yeah, they're going to play the game because they have no choice because they're compromised, and that's how they got in office. If they didn't have dirt on any of them, they would have never been put in that position. So,
Well, many say that.
Yeah,
many say that's the reason why JFK was offed.
he stopped playing. Well, he was printing using gold and silver coins. You can't mess with the Federal Reserve notes.
Nope.
You can't be once you play with the money, you playing with
You're playing with
hitters.
Yeah, you're playing with a life right there.
Yeah, the creature from Jekyll Island. If anybody never seen that video, you check that out. You'll understand money a little differently. So, as far as Trump specifically, I never since when I was little, Trump was just the rich real estate guy and the Trump casinos.
Yeah, the reality
when I
TV
was
guy.
Younger, we would say stuff like, my game is Trump type. Now, if you say that, people think you're a Trump supporter. It's like you can't even say cool stuff no more. You know what I mean? So I don't look at Trump as anybody who's to be paid attention to, like, because everybody's going to have a feeling about the president. You know what I mean? Like,
early in the game, though, you're right, though. Early in the game, early 2000s, lots of rappers referenced Donald Trump in their rhymes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because he was just a rich dude.
That's right.
And now he's just a richer dude who got some authority in the White House. You know what I mean? To where the stuff that he says, you can tell that he's not a politician.
Right.
Like Ronald Reagan was an
That's
actor.
why he got put in
Yeah,
office.
that's kind of his appeal.
That's my point.
Mhm.
That's exactly my point. Because if you referencing Back to the Future, when Doc asked Marty, "Who's the president?" He said Reagan. He's like the actor.
That's
Why
true.
is
You really
actors becoming
like that
president?
movie, don't you?
The movie's good,
You know
though.
what I'm saying?
It's a classic.
I'm an '80s kid. You know what I mean? So I grew up on all the. You know what I mean?
That's
I
a
was
good
born
one.
in '77. So you know what I mean? So
You must be my age. Are you like in your 50s?
I'm 42.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, then you're a young whippersnapper.
He was dancing to the song White Lines.
So was
I
I.
don't
It's a
know
great
white
song.
lines, but
Well, I mean, I danced to it, and I'm not of that time, but I'm still doing trees and listening to that.
Hey man, I was doing Saturday Night Fever and doing the John
oh
Travolta
yeah,
dances.
I peeped Saturday Night Fever. You know what I'm saying? So
You're
I
wearing.
know John Travolta is.
You guys were wearing bell bottoms.
Oh no!
I wasn't wearing
Don't
bell
put that
bottoms.
on me.
Oh,
I was never
shit.
wearing
We
bell
was wearing
bottoms.
it.
No
Oh,
way.
We
shit.
was wearing jabots and cross colors. You know what I'm saying?
I was gonna say, you guys were wearing corduroy, huh? The corduroy suits.
I had a leisure suit when I was a little kid.
Oh,
About
shit.
maybe like 11 or 12. I think I wore it for my confirmation. It was yellow.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that mustard.
We was wearing
the
t-shirts and khakis and Nikes. You know what I'm saying? Lights, Jordans. But
nice.
as far as President Trump himself, I mean, based on the stuff he says, he sounds like a businessman. He talks like he's running a business meetings. He tries to make everything sound good, and you know, what I mean, I don't put any stock into anything he says, and then that's for any president. You know what I mean? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, the governor. Why he got voted? Because he was a good actor.
Well, I mean, it takes a bit of a
charisma.
Sure, but it takes a lot of a charisma for sure to gain that sort of support.
It does, but I mean, I'm just saying, as far as the way people think and react to people who are celebrities, I mean,
I agree.
The next celebrity might be the next president. You know what I mean? Like Oprah.
Well, that's another. That's funny.
If Oprah ran for office, she would win hands down.
Exactly, and I'm glad you say that because
it was up to people.
Yeah, if it was up to
people,
right?
I don't think it's up to people though.
It really isn't.
I have a concept. Real quick, let me share the concept. Have you ever played PlayStation?
Of course.
You know what I'm talking about, PlayStation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you ever been playing with somebody and a little kid wants to play? You act like you give him a joystick and you make him think he's playing.
Yes.
That's the voting machine.
the electoral college, the way that works.
Exactly. I think they make us think we're involved, and we really just have a joystick that is not connected to the game.
I think that's possibly there's some truth to that. I'm sure, but yes, I have to say I agree with you. Let's say Kim Kardashian. Let's say if she was running for something, I'm sure a lot of people would vote for her. Unfortunately.
Yes.
And that's a crazy woman right there. You know, anyone that gets involved with her, your career goes down the drain.
I mean, the way people, bread and circuses, once the Romans came up with that concept of bread and circus, man, it just never stopped. You keep the people entertained, you keep them fed.
Keep them distracted.
They're not going to complain. You keep them distracted. And that's the thing.
That's what they did.
Entertainment world.
That's what they did with the Colosseum when things were going bad. They would distract them with games there.
It just goes back to how the Romans.
Yeah.
Right. And this goes back to why a lot of people will tell you, from the book of Daniel or Revelation, depending if you're Jew or Christian, the Romans are the fourth beast that are currently ruling the world, and they just have different names or different tentacles. Like if you read the book of Psalm chapter 83, it says the tents of Edom, and it names like 8 other nations. And this Edom or Esau is basically what people refer to as the wicked kingdom.
The white man, Esau.
Not necessarily the white man.
God hated Esau, by the way.
Yeah, God hated Esau.
That's true.
Because he gave up his birthright. You know what I mean? He was supposed to. So, but it's not necessarily white people. It's anybody who causes conflict and trouble around the world. Because if you lived in the Islamic world, your threat ain't the white man. It's jihads and Hezbollah and the Taliban and things like that. They're the ones going around killing people and converting you if you're not a Muslim. They're killing you. So
and throwing homosexuals off of roofs.
Yeah, but however, if you really think about it, the terrorists, the jihadists, those people are studying their Bible, the Quran.
That's true.
Doctrine. They are following it word for word, whereas the Jews and the Christians are not. And I'll tell you why. Because their books have changed so many different times, and now they interpret things the way they do. The Muslims, those who are sick, effed up in the head and want to kill everybody, they are following word for word the dogma of their Bible, and they believe it. They, in my opinion, they are the true Muslims of Islam. The peaceful people who don't want to cut your freaking head off with a butter knife, those people are the reformed Muslims. Those people I've got nothing against. It's the jihadists and those who believe that the Quran is the word and that everybody should die who does not believe in it. And that's their goal. Ultimately, that is the goal. I've read the Quran and I've read 8 books on terrorism, and I'm sorry, I really think those people are effed up.
Let me speak on that, because I agree with what you're saying as far as the Muslims read their book and they actually carry it out. I think the New Testament is, to go back to a question that Michael asked earlier, do you think it's a product of Rome? I think the New Testament took Jesus and made him very passive, turn the other cheek, obey the superior authorities. The book of Romans have their own book in the New Testament. The enemies of Israel who killed them and enslaved them in their own land got their own book in the New Testament. That says a lot. And in the New Testament, the Amalek, which is the nation that has been at war with God since the book of Exodus, is not even mentioned in the New Testament. That's another thing to pay attention to. But as far as Israel was never told to go out and conquer the world with the sword. They were told to conquer their own land. But when you read the story, it was their land anyway, and the Canaanites invaded it. And they were told to get rid of the idolaters and people worshiping or people sacrificing their children in the fire and stuff like that. So Israel was never told to be the warriors to go out and convert the world, because they're told to be a light to the Gentiles. And, people come to the light. You don't have to really go out and proselytize. But right. I agree with you as far as the Quran saying basically if you're not Muslim, you die. You know what I mean? And
they're real Muslims
doing that.
They're really more religious than Christians are, if you think about it.
Absolutely.
On that
Absolutely.
tip, yes, because they're more on of a hands-on, physically
very hands-on
virtue. Yeah,
very.
They don't just yell
hands-on
at you
knife.
Go to hell. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
We got this knife.
Yeah. It's just really crazy though, Dayvaughn. Even at an early age when they're growing up, the kids are taught to play the suicide game. Really, they throw dirt in the air and act like they were bombed or destroyed or blew up rather.
You know what I heard a Jewish guy in Israel say? They was asking him, do you hate the Palestinians for blowing up people? And he was like, you know what? He said, I don't hate them and I don't love them, but he said when they learn to love their kids more than they hate us, we can probably talk.
Wow.
When you're teaching your kids to blow up people,
yeah.
That's no love for your kids. Like, you know what I mean?
I don't see a God in that. I don't see anything godly about that.
Now, what kind of God promotes hate and racism and segregation?
The crazy thing about the Quran, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what kind of God promotes that when all they do is they suppress women,
murder homosexuals.
They murder homosexuals. They murder anybody who doesn't follow their idealism. They will kill a woman for being raped. It's the woman's fault for getting raped.
It's an honorable killing, by the way.
That's right.
Crazy.
A 14-year-old girl was just killed in an honorary killing because what did she do? Run away or
something like that? And also, of course, underage marriage as well.
Oh yeah, I've seen guys who are like in their
child
20s
brides
marrying 7 and 9-year-olds.
I don't see God in that. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't.
That's crazy.
That is
the weird thing about the Quran is that they actually acknowledge the New Testament and the Old Testament. So for them to say, well, you have to be a Muslim or die, it's like, then why do you support Jesus is in the Quran?
They don't necessarily support them. The way that the Muslim religion sees it is that if you believe in Jesus or Christianity, it's acceptable to a certain point. Certain percentage of it is acceptable, and they tax you. Now, if you were let's just say you're living in, I don't want to use the word Iraq because Iraq's a mess right now, but let's just say like Saudi Arabia. If you're living in the outskirts and the deserts and you're not living in the city with all the oil owners, if you're a believer in Christianity and you believe in Jesus, the Muslims will accept you for that, but it's still not a Muslim religion, and you are therefore taxed. You understand?
Now, I have seen some tolerance of that nature, and it even goes back in ancient times. If a Jew was a religious Jew, they left him alone. But if he broke any of his own Jewish laws, then you were subject to either you convert or you die. So
I see.
Depending on where you are and and what time in history, and of course, if you got political affiliations and stuff like that, you get a little bit more protection. But I think the world is boiling.
It really is.
You know what I mean? And it's a crazy time to be alive. Like sometimes I think of all the times to be born, I must have something to do right now. You know what I mean? Like, this is my moment to live and do whatever I do and teach my kids as much as I can teach them because, tomorrow ain't promised,
That's right. Tomorrow's not promised. That's why I always say you must learn to adapt and evolve. And by the way, we are coming to a close very shortly here, but I also wanted to ask you your opinions on Joe Biden and the mess that he's created. Dayvaughn.
Only thing that I've seen is that he said something about, because I really don't follow politics, because I look at them all, the Democrat, Republicans,
all the same, same cloth, right?
It's all the same. I don't.
I hear you.
So
good for you.
Good for you.
I seen a post. I don't play the political game. I seen a post where he says, if you vote for Trump, you're not black. Or something.
That's what Joe Biden said. How could he tell a black guy that though, Davon? I mean, that shit would be kind of like insulting.
He knows something, and I'm gonna tell you a sad truth.
Go ahead.
Black people only support the Democratic Party, and I got my quotes in the air when I say black people.
No, not everybody. Not everybody.
That's why I said my quotes in the air. When I say black people, it's the black people who are involved in politics for the most part. And let me be fair. In my experience, people that I know, they only support Democratic Party from its inception of us being able to vote is because the Democrats hand out money and they create all these programs. You see what I'm saying? To where
but
Democrats
they never really
are
care.
The bread and circus. The Democrats are the bread and circus for black people in America. To make a long story short.
Understood. Yes. It is interesting though. We see these endless cycles come and go. We always get religion, we get the political issues, and then it always goes back to race. Those three issues, always in cycle, always in syndication. No matter where you are, you're always faced with those three things, those three issues. Would you agree, Davon?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Davon, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely would agree, and I'll tell you a reason why. And I'm going to come from a culture perspective.
Go ahead.
Culturally speaking, most black people in America, and I got my quotes when I say black people of color in America, were raised in the Christian doctrine, right?
Right.
You want to say, a little, were they Jews or whatever? They had a Christian doctrine. And by reading the Bible, there is a nation that fits the criteria of the Klan, and this is what I'm talking about. When slavery ended, we didn't have no land, we had no rights, we didn't have nothing. We were just basically free to go, right? But we were still lynched, we were still killed, we were still hated for no reason. It was because we're not slaves no more. You hate us even more. Like we gave nobody any reason to hate us anymore. And I'm speaking specifically for the people who was killing us and lynching people. Now, when you go back into the Bible, there's a nation called Amalek. When Israel came up out of Egypt or freed from slavery, same scenario, the nation Amalek came and attacked them without cause, without reason. Hatred for no reason. They attacked their weak and their young, and they attacked them from behind where the stragglers were coming from. So the clan would fit the same description as Amalek, that when it says in the book of Exodus, this nation will be at war with Israel from generation to generation. So if we was to fast forward today, the clan or the racist people that are constantly attacking black people for no reason at all out of hatred would fit Amalek 100%. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's one of the pieces of the color issue that you were speaking about.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. We've learned a lot today here, Mike.
Yeah.
I like y'all, man. I think y'all both cool, man. I think y'all have good questions, like for real. Like when Michael first told me he was an atheist, we was talking about so many different things to where that really didn't matter. You know what I'm saying? He knew my perspective. You know what I'm saying? He knew I wasn't a Christian. I don't believe in Jesus. You know what I'm saying? I follow the Old Testament. And that wasn't a barrier like, oh, you're an atheist. I don't know where the show is going to go. I was like, no, we're going to have a good show. We laughed, we joked, we talked about stuff. We have something in common, a couple things in common, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Growing up. So I think this is the type of conversations people need to have without, hatred, without pointing fingers, without telling them, well, this because you disagree with me, you're going to go to hell. There's no way for you to get to heaven. And by the way, the way to spirituality is not so much as belief, it's actually knowing what's going on. You can believe in many things, but if you don't understand what you believe, then it's not going to get you anywhere.
Right.
You need to understand what's going on, and you need to be able to look at things from an outside point of view. Step back from what you're doing and see how it applies to your life. Can you actually practice it, or is it all theoretical? Can you actually give charity to people and help them out, opposed to saying, well, I would like to help people. That's all in theory. But if you're not doing it, it's not helping nobody.
Yeah, practice what you preach.
You're not trying to be a better. Practice what you preach. You know what I mean? And look at your leaders. Are they the person that you want your son to be? Because if you follow in their footsteps, then you're gonna become that person. You know what I mean? So everything comes down to studying, paying attention, and really engage yourself. And people like to be or entertained opposed to educated these days because it's at our fingertips. You can pick up your phone, and 3 hours later you've been on your phone.
That's right. And of course, for those that don't know, Davon Mays here, the guest that we've been speaking to, you can find all his work at Amazon.com. Just type in his name and you will find it. And of course, by the way, Davon, I must say, when I randomly searched you, I found a book called Do You Love Your Wife? Back in
it's a poetry book.
Yeah, back in 2014. I would have to say it's kind of amusing. The reason why I say it's amusing is because we've read for weeks now that there's been all sorts of like domestic violence going on across the nation under the whole shelter in place. You're stuck with maybe a wife or a girlfriend that you probably don't even love. Maybe you are sick and tired of her. So when I read Do You Love Your Wife, I was going to say, damn, that's a question that's going to be put to the test during COVID-19.
Definitely, man. Because a lot of people get married for wrong reasons.
Of course,
you fall out of love, you get distracted. You get sidetracked. You get in a fight, and you want to vent or whatever. Marriage is one of those fragile things, but it can be an excellent thing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I've been with my wife since I was 17. You know what I mean?
So,
yeah.
Since high school, is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, man. Since '95. Yeah, bro.
Wow.
It's a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? So.
I'm happy for you, Davon. I'm happy for you.
Wait a minute, Davon. Wait a minute. Don't tell me you lost your virginity to her.
No.
Okay, good. I'm just curious.
Put the guy on the spot, why don't you?
I have to.
Right.
I mean, Davon, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made you answer that. Or, I'm sorry I made you answer that question there. I know it's inappropriate, but I had a friend, and he's like my best friend growing up, and the guy. He's not married to her, but he's been with her since like he was in high school. And I just think, wow, that's insane. You've been with the same woman the entire time and the only woman you've ever kissed and you ever slept with. I just think, oh, my God, you would have been better off in the 1920s.
Well, I would say I wish I had. But that wasn't to be honest, to be honest. That wasn't my experience. But I think I've met a few people that have been in that same situation.
That's just wild to me.
Yeah, it's wonderful, man. Like,
but I am happy for him. But I am happy for you too. I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing.
Yeah. It's rare, but it is something that's tangible. And
you know what?
It's Go ahead.
You know what, Davon? I'm very jealous of you. I'm just envious. You have a wonderful marriage.
Yeah.
You and your wife love each other, and that's wonderful. I've been searching for that all my life.
He's been looking in all the wrong places, Dayvaughn.
Well, everything has come down to time and space. Everything happens for a reason. You know what I mean? There's reasons, because you might meet somebody that at the right time that might you need some type of mental support or any type of situation. You might get sick and you might meet a nurse that takes care of you and you fall in love. That's true. There's all kind of movie scenarios that you see when you meet people. You know what I mean? So
you're right.
It's there's a proverb that says he who finds a wife has found favor with God. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a proverb. And
what about if you're in my situation, you found a couple of psychos that just are absolutely insane? What's God say then?
Well, it says
run like hell.
It says that the man who finds a displeasing woman, if he escapes from her, that he also has favor with God.
Oh, and do you remember who Adam's first wife was?
You talking about Lilith?
Oh,
Lilith,
you're good. All right. Yeah, you know your stuff, Davon. I'm impressed.
Davon knows. He's well studied. I made sure Davon knew he did his homework. He's a good man.
Yeah.
Wise man here. Yeah. Davon's a good guy. Davon J. Mays, by the way, right? J. That's
Yes, sir.
What's your middle
Jerome.
name?
My middle name is Jerome.
Jerome. There we go. So yeah, this is Dayvaughn, boys and girls. Definitely pick up his work. He has a very different perspective on a lot of things. But I mean, it all comes from a good place, just like every other religion out there. They all have their pluses and negatives, all alike. You learn something from everyone.
I try to be well-rounded. When I was younger, my mom would tell me that I would kill my brothers and sisters with my words. So I had to be very careful what I said. So, when you're young, you try to hurt people's feelings. Kids hurt feelings. They don't care.
Yeah,
so
they don't
I
care.
really had to. I had a real bad temper when I was younger. So by me reading the book of Proverbs and studying a lot of different ethical books, I had to learn how to talk to people and because when you get mad at people,
right?
It's anger. Anger is a very negative energy. It turns into horrible things. You end up killing somebody just because you got mad at the wrong thing. So, but if you turn that around and try to figure out, why did that make me mad? It's because they disagree with me. It's because they didn't see it the way I seen it. You know what I mean? And you learn how to use your words in a different manner opposed to as a knife.
Yep. Got to be wise and choose those words. And Davon, I must say, I've had a great time with you. I will definitely have to bring you back for round 2 here on the program.
Oh, please, anytime. And I appreciate it. I'm glad you found me. Shout out to Mike from the Misfits. Is that what the group is called?
Oh, you told him that, Michael?
I told him that you were a former musician, and I gave him some band names. So yeah, he's aware.
Yeah. So I just want to say shout out to you, man, because I liked your questions. I think you got actually some great questions because you asked some very relevant questions too. Because especially the one about coming across people who don't, like for instance, you come across the guy who worships Satan at a party and you happen to be of a different religion. You don't attack that person. All you did was fuel his fire. Is what you really did. If you really wanted him to see your perspective, but you're throwing rocks at him, it's like, who wants to? I don't want to listen to you when you're just so disrespectful. You might have the truth, but I don't want it from you.
That's
exactly.
right. And I'm glad you see things that way. That really makes me respect you more. Because as I've said, I've seen situations where those people who on the religious side of whether in most cases it was Christianity that I've seen people attack others who don't see their side of their religion, and I find that very disrespectful.
Yeah, it is very disrespectful, and that goes with the saying that no one's, well, let me put it this way. Not everyone has the same perspective on truth that you do. Everyone's truth is very different. That's the bad part.
And exposure. Some people haven't been exposed to a lot because they've been entertained their whole life. They never sat down and actually read a dictionary and figured out what certain words mean. I just found this out earlier this year or end of last year. A friend of mine, he gave me a book called Black's Law Dictionary. And in that book, shout out to my homeboy Royce. That's like one of my big brothers. He gave me this book called Black's Law Dictionary. It's it's a law book. And the word thesaurus, one of the definitions is if you don't claim your right to something, it gives the king the right to it. So let's say you own some property and you don't claim your rights to that property, it belongs to the king.
Mm.
And one of the reasons he brought this up because we was talking about some things, and this is kind of a whole nother topic, but there's a lot of people over here that are Native Americans, but they're told that they're black. And by telling them that they're black, they think that they came from slave ships in Africa, but they're really indigenous to the land. So if you can get all the real natives to think that they're black and came from Africa, then nobody has any claims to this land called America, which gives it to the king.
That's a good point.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So just little things like that is like, wow. No wonder they want us to put black on everything because there's no United Nations doesn't represent anybody called black. There's no flag for black. What is this black thing? You know what I'm saying? But if I'm actually somebody indigenous to the land and I can claim my rights to this land and my ancestry, you can't just take it as the king.
Well, you know what they say: if you don't claim, you ain't black.
That's true.
you see what I'm saying?
According to Joe Biden.
That right there is, you know what I mean? Like I said, that's a whole nother conversation because your black card is going to get pulled and stuff. It's like, you know what? Before we were called black, we was called something else. You know?
That's true.
That was a term put on us. You know,
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't no white people. Y'all were called, where you're from. You were German. You know what I'm saying? You were, from Poland. You were Polish or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just look at all the black people named Freeman.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. You know?
It is.
Terms and titles have been put on people for
Right.
so long. You know what I mean? Like, what does it all really mean? You know, you got to open up that dictionary. You got to study. You know,
you got to do your homework, no doubt. So once again, Dayvaughn, thank you so much for being a part of the program. Love this chat with you, and we will definitely do it again in the near future, my friend.
Well, thanks for having me. Thank you, Mike, and thanks to your audience. I had a great time. I've been looking at the chat. I haven't responded in the chat because there's so many different things kind of going on. So I was just kind of looking, you know what I mean?
Nice.
I seen somebody call me a dingleberry.
Don't worry.
Like, wow. You know, it's fine. It's fine because, like you said, everybody's going to have their different perspectives. You know what I mean? So, that's fine,
Yeah, don't let it bother you. These are just people, and, they're just having fun.
Yeah, it's all good because all that means is, you're paying attention to what I'm saying, and either you liked it or you didn't. You know
hey,
what I mean?
if it caused that sort of emotion, that's a good thing. If you didn't get a rise out of anyone, you're not doing your job.
Right, you know what I mean? So,
if you're not catching heat,
that person can have a lot to talk about.
That's right, Dayvaughn. if you're not catching heat, Dayvaun, you're not doing it right.
And if you ain't catching heat, you ain't black.
Yeah.
Right. My rabbi
right.
told me if everybody likes you, you're doing something wrong.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Dayvaughn. We will definitely do this again, my friend. It was awesome.
Thanks for being such a good sport.
Have a great night.
Take care.
Doubt.
Good night.
Peace.
And there he goes, boys and girls. Mr. Davon Mays.
Oh, that was fun.
It really
he knows
was.
His stuff. He's good. He knows his stuff.
Very wise, very sharp. I appreciate him being here. Of course. But Mike, don't you know that
God rules.
Don't you know that wherever we go, God rules?
When I walk on White House grounds, God walks on White House grounds.
Oh shit.
I had every right and authority to declare the White House as holy ground because I was standing there, and where I stand is holy.
Holy ground, Mike.
Holy crap.
Hallelujah.
To say no to President Trump would be saying no to God.
Holy camole.
Saying no to President Trump would be saying no to God.
If you say no to President Trump, you ain't black.
You ain't black. Thank you, Joe Biden, for that one. My God.
That's going to go on forever.
That's going to leave a mark.
See us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. Come on. Take a look at the record.
Come on.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Anyway, thanks. I will come back.
Joe Biden, that crazy cracker.
Damn.
That crazy cracker, that Joe Biden. I don't know, boys and girls, but he's lost his mind, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Most people have lost their goddamn minds, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll say. Absolutely.
Well, Mike, that was fun. I had a great time. I want to thank you and, of course, thank our guest, Davon Mays. He was amazing, to say the very least. And
absolutely.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I liked Davon.
Good guy.
Good dude. Definitely have to bring him back on again, and we will jump right back into all these lovely subjects. I mean, we didn't even get to talk about the CNN reporter who was arrested at the scene, by the way, during the protesting.
Oh, I didn't even know about this. What?
Yeah.
What details? What happened?
Well, early Friday morning, I believe I had read a headline that said something about a CNN correspondent, some guy named Omar. I don't remember his last name, but he's like a producer or something, or a cameraman. Police told them to, get away from the area, and the guy I just
What
stood
area?
there.
What area are we talking about?
It
What
was
area?
during the protests.
In Minneapolis?
That's right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They
All right.
just told him to
So
move,
go on.
and he didn't move, and they put his ass in handcuffs, and it was all shot live on TV.
Wow.
Pretty amazing, right?
Pretty cool. CNN under arrest.
Under arrest with CNN, and of course we have that story of the St. Paul police disputing the claim that Officer Jacob Pedersen started the riots.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was the article I sent you, right?
Yes, and
Can you believe that, man? They have a conversation with allegedly, the ex-wife, and she's giving him up.
yeah. Like I said, folks, when I spoke to Michael earlier today, it was about this very topic that we're discussing right now, and it literally blew my mind because I'm having so much trouble accepting the fact that the possibility that there are moles planted, for lack of a better term or expression, people who are planted into situations to start trouble or whatever it may be. I just had such a hard time swallowing it. I had to call Michael and I was like, Mike, what is going on? I don't get it. I don't understand. He's really, listeners, Michael has ruined my mind. He's destroyed me.
That's true. I have kind of ruined your mind. That's true. You've been red-pilled, Mike.
I want to go back.
I know. We're at the point of no return. But yes, Mike, Operation Northwoods, something that you should look into, which was a false flag operation against the Cuban government. You know, the CIA was doing everything they could to overthrow Fidel Castro at the time.
Back in the 60s, you're talking about, right?
1959, 1960, 1962, I believe, is when it really went down. But yeah, they were doing everything in their power to get rid of Fidel Castro. But yeah, look it up whenever you get bored, and you will find out what our U.S. government was up to. And, you know, going through history, you'll see that our government has conducted these false flag operations for many, many moons.
So you've said.
Yeah, but you'll find out, and you're starting to see it now. And of course, you got Michael Flynn, who was ruined by the FBI. That's another great example of these things we speak of. That's why I say conspiracies are very real, and that's why people go to jail for them.
You know, I have always found it interesting when we interview like an ex-military person who will say something like, you know, they fought for this country, they put their lives on the line,
Mm-hmm.
and then once things start getting political, it's like where does the devotion go? Like, or shall I say, the determination to fight for something that you once believed in? It becomes washed away, so to speak.
It really does. Just like the pursuit of happiness in this country, that's never stated anywhere, any time in mainstream media. Whatever happened to that, Mike? Gone.
Yeah,
You don't hear that at all anymore.
I firmly believe that the media was sort of bought.
It was.
Yeah, and I believe it all started somewhere in the early 70s, give or take. Once news reporters or journalists began getting, I guess you could say, either kickbacks or where there's even a thing for like, I don't know what they call it, like awards for, you know, best journalist, best whatever reporting. I mean,
you take us back once again, Mike, to something called Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA, once again, they were manipulating the news media with propaganda. So what makes you think this is not going on today?
Even Lincoln did something with the media where he what the hell did he do? I think he either criticized them or used them for his own political power. I can't remember the entire story, but I know Lincoln was involved in either something like I just said, either with the media, he either had them work for him or he was against them. I can't remember what it was, but there was something to that effect. So yeah, it's been going on for a long time. But I can honestly say I've seen the change start somewhere in the 70s when the journalists and the media began, you know, it was more commercialized and it was like about putting on a good show, you know, so that the people would watch the news.
Right.
So like Academy Awards, I think.
Yeah, we can go even further back to the 1960s, to the 1980s, and we could even talk about the sexual revolution.
Absolutely.
It all ties into this. All of this does. And my God, Mike, we have a lot to discuss once again tomorrow night, and we will get into all these things tomorrow with another guest, Dugan Ashley, by the way.
Okay.
Who had a very popular YouTube channel at one time. They had all kinds of views, and he was a gentleman that was firing guns. And then they got rid of his channel, I think, or they banned him. I'm not sure what exactly happened to one Dugan Ashley, but we'll find out.
Right.
He's a good guy. Yeah, what is he, like ex-military or something, I believe, and we have him on tomorrow night.
That ought to be interesting.
Yeah, should be fun.
Yeah.
I love guns.
Looking forward to it.
Love guns.
Me too.
Love talking about guns. Love shooting guns.
Me too, man. And if I could afford more, I'd buy more.
It feels so good shooting a automatic rifle, by the way.
Michael, there's nothing like it. And I'll tell you, living in Pennsylvania and having my carry conceal permit,
nice.
I never felt more safe in my life. Everywhere I go, I'm allowed to carry my 9mm, and I have no fear.
I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. I just had like a carry permit at one time.
You had one?
Yeah, for job purposes.
Job purposes, so security.
Yeah, concealed.
Right. So again, not only do I feel safe, but I know that there's probably at least 50 to 75% other people who are carrying out there. And it's to me, I sincerely believe if you have more people carrying guns, the crime rate is going to drop. Because people are not going to try to rip you off if they know you're carrying.
If you're packing heat, right.
God darn right.
Oh, I'm holding, that's for sure.
Hell yeah, I'm packing too, brother.
You got to. Out here, you can't be walking around without that strap.
But the sad thing
you
is,
you gotta be strapped with the strap.
Right, but in California, you guys got it a lot different.
Yeah,
out
we
there
got
because
just screwed up laws out here in regards to guns. It's embarrassing.
Very similar to New York.
Yeah, I just all of it is very frustrating to me, to be honest. That's why I don't even talk about it very often, because it just pisses me off.
I could imagine, yeah. That's one of the reasons I shouldn't really say this. It's not one of the reasons I left New Jersey, but one of my frustrations to having lived in New Jersey as long as I did is getting a carry conceal license. Every time you buy, a rifle, you have to, go through the whole process again and again. Out here, they still do background checks on you like they do everywhere else.
Sure.
But the difference is, like, if you walk into a gun store, like I could walk into a gun store today and I'd say, I want that Colt 45, and I can buy it. They'll do the check right then and there, and I can literally walk out of the store with it in a holster, visible. If I don't have a carry conceal permit, I can literally walk out of that store with it in a holster as long as it's visible and not get in trouble.
Yeah, lucky. We can't do that here.
Couldn't do it in Jersey either.
Dude, I could only carry around 10 rounds.
Out here, we're only allowed to...
Can you believe that, though, Mike? 10 rounds. I mean, which criminal is going to follow that law?
I was just going to say, what scumbag criminal is going to go according to that law?
Oh,
We've got it out here, too. I've got my MP15, Smith & Wesson MP15, and I got a 30-round clip, and you're only allowed to put, I think it's 6 or 8 bullets.
Oh my God!
When you're at the firing range, and I'm like, okay, that's fine and dandy, but I'm at a friggin' firing range. Who cares?
That's embarrassing.
Cares? Whatever. I never listened to that law anyway.
It's funny because a few years ago we had to do the qualifications again and shoot. We had to go shooting, and we had to hit a target, and the instructor was telling us, "Oh, make sure you only put in the rounds there, the the 10 rounds. And of course I never did. And he gave me shit for it. And I told him, I said, come on, man, you're going to give me shit for that? I'm not going to follow some pussy rule. he was going to say, I'm not going to pass you if you do it again. And of course I rebelled and did it again. You're only supposed to shoot maybe like 5 rounds. I shot more.
So did you end up failing that test?
Almost. I had a protest.
Really?
Yeah, I had to just get on the instructor and tell him, come on, man, don't be a bitch. I didn't tell him that, but I just said, don't be, I just said, come on, man.
He would have definitely failed you if you called him a bitch.
If I called him a bitch, for sure, he would have failed me.
Yeah, you got to be careful sometimes who you call a bitch.
The other people there were kind of under the same notion. No, they kind of gave him a look. They're like, come on, he's hitting the goddamn mark. Perfect every time.
So are you saying that the test was for you to, like, what were you taking the test for?
The first time it was just to get the permit.
A carry conceal?
Right.
Oh, okay. That kind of makes sense. Nevertheless, if you are indeed carrying a weapon as a security, what, you're only going to keep 10 rounds
I'm going to keep 10 rounds.
In your clip?
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
It's dumb.
Ridiculous.
It's really stupid.
If you're a security guard and you're there protecting the lives of others, what, you're going to keep 10 rounds in your clip? Come on. Like you just said, what stupid ass criminal is going to follow those rules?
No one's going to obey that.
Right. So if they walk in with like I don't know, a Beretta or some big gun that can hold like 20 rounds, what are you supposed to do?
I'm just going to count my shots.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm out. Don't shoot.
Don't shoot. I'm done. Let me reload.
Let me reload. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, those are the laws. And, I get pissed off by the laws of man.
I don't blame you. That's a stupid law.
It really is. So, Mike, once again, I do want to thank you for being a part of the program. We've kind of ran our course here. Fortunately, yeah. I do want to talk to you longer, but I guess we'll just save it for tomorrow.
Right on, brother.
You got it, my friend. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of the program. Mike, go ahead and plug anything you'd like before we shut it down.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening tonight to the show. I had a great time. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Davon. If you're interested in checking out my artwork, horribleartwork.com. You can also check out my musical efforts at mykehideous.com. That's MYKE hideous.com. And you can also catch up with me on Facebook at facebook.com/hideousmike, MYKE. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I had a great time. See you tomorrow.
Very nice. Talk to you soon, Mike.
All right, buddy. You have a good night.
You too. Mahalo. Good night. And there he goes, boys and girls. That was the one and only Mr. Mike Hideous. Thanks to all of you out there who hung out with us here tonight. Thank you to Davon Mays. Thank you to all the mods out there who protected us. Yes, you saved us from the evil, from the outside world. Of course, don't forget, if you are a quote-unquote fan of the program, you want more bonus content, please direct yourselves to patreon.com/Michael Decon and take us on the road with you, the podcast rendition on iTunes, Stitcher, and CastBox, which I really like. And of course, if you don't want to sign up to Patreon for only $5, you can go to michaeldecon.com and use PayPal. Any amount is fine, and I'll send you some of the bonus episodes as well. Any amount you donate on PayPal, I'll throw you a bone. Don't worry. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. But yes, the podcast rendition, definitely check that out if you are not here for the live show on YouTube. And I wish all of those individuals out there who listen to the podcast rendition would actually hang out with us here live. But I do understand some of you can't make it here. I appreciate that regardless. International listeners out there, thank you too for all of your support. Germany, Canada, Australia, Norway, Brazil, and the UK. Love all of you. No doubt. Whatever it is that you do choose to believe, you must adapt now. Again, all control has been lost, boys and girls. Don't just wait till the TV says so. You have to look out for yourself in this world. There's no safety net. We have already passed the point of no return, boys and girls, and that's the message I've been trying to relay to you. Tomorrow is not guaranteed, boys and girls. Climb what you can before it's gone. And with that said, the world is a mysterious place, and life itself is a mystery. Until next time, mahalo.
I didn't want to party anymore. I didn't want to play games anymore. I grew up. I'd already been in the fights, all the big rituals. I'd already had probably, I hate to brag, I'm not bragging, it's actually shameful, probably 150 women or more. That's conservative. I'd had over 150 women. I'd already been in fights with full-grown men. I was already dating college girls by the time I was 15 years old. I was already a